And then, tribal flags taken off the walls. They weren't folded, folks. They were wadded up and shoved in boxes. Now, I've heard from a number of you all that Jeff Cathy is busy telling you that it didn't happen the way Sang says it did. Sierra can happily show you the pictures of our tribal flags wadded up in boxes. She's got the photo. Sacred items that are still missing. A smudge pot. We don't know where it is. Sage. Sweetgrass. Gone. We reported it. Have we heard from J.J. Brown? Nope. Jeff Cathy? Nope. Lamont Sellers? Nope.
If you want to go ahead and pull that one, man.
All right.
But welcome to Cherokee, man. How you guys been feeling today? Good?
Good, man. We got some fucking good rest. We stayed up super late last night just smoking and doing really just hanging out, just shooting the shit.
Yeah.
I mean, I know one of the things we're talking about is like our first impressions and stuff, but it's probably like our 5th or 6th time up here now. So
okay.
It never feels like it's like what's the word I'm looking for? Like like super new experience, but like we always do something kind of cool every time. At the very least, get to see each other because it's been like we'll go like months without seeing everyone. So it always feels like a boys' trip. We come back.
Right.
And Derek always tells us like, look, man, we get like at most a day's worth of stuff to do in Cherokee, but like, you know, as far as like go see something, but you always get, you know, the more creative you get with something, the more fun you have and like better memories. So for us, that's always a big thing. But doing well rested for sure.
Awesome. Yeah. That's what's up. Yeah. Yeah. So what you guys came in from, well, I guess just to get into it. Welcome back to uktenaunderground. You already know what it is, man. It's Corey J.
Case Dizzy.
And today we have a couple guests with us, man. Derek, my coworker. I work part-time at the dispensary. It's real flexible, so just in and out over there. I work with Derek, met Derek, and Derek happened to be a graduate from Appalachian State University, which some people are aware of the issues going on over there. Some people aren't. It'll be up for debate and discussion here. We just want to let people know what's happening. So you want to introduce yourself, Derek? First, last name, where you from, how old, community is very important as well.
Yeah, my name is Derek Torres. I'm from, I guess, Wolftown community. I'm technically in Big Y. That's the top of the mountain. I'm 23 years old. I graduated from Appalachian State last May, so May 2023. I got a major in English, minor in communications, and yeah, I met Corey, you know, at work. You know, we both are in the same department, and yeah, I mean, I just grew up in Cherokee my whole life. Went out to Boone for a couple of years, came back, just trying to make some money, save up, hopefully get MFA soon.
Okay, that's what's up. Yourself, man?
Yeah, so I'm Hugo Rios Pineda, also go by Hugo and Hugo. And I graduated from Appalachian State this past May, so May 2024. And I got my undergrad in social work with a minor in Spanish. And I'm currently a MSW student at University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, doing just a 1-year program, also getting my master's in social work.
All right, cool. And then since you're in frame, man, he brought a couple of buddies with him. So there's 3 of them in the room. One's gonna be out of frame, unfortunately. But you two, man, where you from? Just real quick, name and where you from.
Hold on.
You want to bring that one out? Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, my name is Jaime Garcia. I am 24 years old, and I recently graduated from App State with a double major in film studies and Spanish. But yeah, no, I'm excited to be here.
And hi, my name is Logan Chun. I'm also a recent graduate from Appalachian State. Graduated with environmental economics, and just really excited to see how this conversation goes.
Awesome. Yeah, and then obviously as this progressed, we're pretty new. So uktenaunderground, just to give you a background with us, I know that you probably watched a couple of videos or whatnot, and they're long formatted, man. Yeah. So, but the TikToks are really to the point. They really, get that little
highlight clip.
Yeah, highlights, you know what I'm saying? But we just wanted to really have a platform that we can address issues people don't want to fucking talk about. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're not scared to fucking mention, like, what the fuck happened here? You know what I'm saying? Like, Why is it happening? And, as far as our opinions go, we still have questions about a lot of stuff we talk about. But I mean, that's where it starts, is having the discussion in itself, diving deeper to the details. So that's why we started this podcast, and that's where we're going with that. So we appreciate you guys, coming in and kind of giving your 2 cents as far as, what problems you see from the outside looking in. It gives an outside perspective, I guess.
Yeah.
So, but you guys all met at App State?
Yeah, basically.
Okay. That's what's up, man.
Yeah. We were all in the same dorm. I guess it was our sophomore year, your junior.
Yeah.
Yeah, your junior year.
Yeah.
And we were all on the same floor in the same dorm, so we kind of just met through there.
Yeah.
Because it was like it wasn't a suite style where like it's like 2 rooms and like the bathroom. It was all like a big ass circle, really big ass square. And you come outside, you meet people, you get together. Your RA hosts events and stuff, and you're like, all right, I like this dude. This is cool. Let me get his number. And
Right.
Derek was my roommate, actually. Funny enough, when I met Derek, I thought he was Filipino based off his name, because I was like, Derek Torres. Okay, so I'm like, that's like a very like not Hispanic first name, maybe Hispanic first name, and then last name very like Hispanic sounding. I emailed him over the summer, never responded. Makes total sense now because signal can get bad in some places. So I don't take that at heart. But at that moment, I was like, dang, I guess he's not going to rock with me. That's fine. But then when I met him, he was not Filipino, it's Hispanic, yes, but also Native American. And his accent was what got me, man. His accent got me immediately. It was like, it wasn't
Backwoods
like,
or what?
Yes, it was like that Southern twang,
Yeah.
Like, and it wasn't like nothing I haven't heard before. I have cousins who live in Shelby and like, South Carolina, like deep South. So you get a lot like, this, but even that's a little exaggerated, because that's like maybe more out West Texas.
Yeah.
But, when I heard it from Derek first, I was like, this is going to take a minute to get used to. And before you know it, I don't really hear it anymore.
Yeah.
And
it's also like, I want to say like it's a more specific Southern
it's an
twang.
Appalachian. It's an Appalachian
Yeah, right.
sort of accent. Like a
But
little
even
bit of
with that, though, I
Even
feel
with
like it's
that.
like another subdivision of it, right?
Oh, for sure.
Because
Yeah.
a lot of people that I meet, right? So I guess to give you some background, I'm 27. Corey Junalesco. If we didn't actually get to meet, but
Yeah.
anyways, Corey Junalesco, Wolftown community, grew up here my entire life, but I went to boarding school in Georgia, and not like deep Georgia. It was like 45, not even like 15 minutes over the state line from North Carolina.
Wow, okay.
So, but it's 45 minutes from here, about an hour from here, from Cherokee. But I went to boarding school in Georgia, met friends from the Bahamas and New York, Maryland, and Atlanta. And where I hung out with them all throughout high school, everybody's like, you sound like you're from the city. But some people that I'd met after the fact that weren't from this area, that weren't local, like, you sound like you're from, like, New York, but at the same time, like, you have, like, this weird, like, indigenous sound. So, like, I've heard a lot of, like, natives sound a certain way, like Appalachian, but you like if you live here, you can hear Appalachian and then Appalachian indigenous,
Right?
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I relate to that. That makes sense to me. I don't know if you experienced it.
Yeah, I have. So just to give you all some background, I went to boarding school in Asheville.
Okay.
Yeah, so you guys know the city, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So within like the whole like red Republican counties, you have that one blue like. It's
Right.
completely different, I guess, within culture because they have a lot of outsiders moving in, and so with that, picked up like. I had a really like strong Southern accent when I went into high school, and then that slowly changed. And then when I went out to California to Stanford, it got reinforced. And then moving back here not too long ago, I get that same, I guess, interactions with people. Like, where are you from? Like, you don't sound like too country, but like, there's other parts of your lingo that like doesn't align with the area.
Like we almost have a melting pot, but then our like day-to-day
absolutely.
speech.
Yeah.
So I definitely resonate with that.
Yeah.
It's funny that you brought that up.
Yeah, it's all
actually.
emerging too. Like I mean, think of the Big Cove accent, like the way some of the older folks.
Specifically,
Yeah.
like you can tell who's from Big Cove. You can tell who's from Wolftown, Soka Mountain. You can tell who's from Birdtown. Like it's
There's
definitely.
been moments where we're in like discussion with some people, and I have to ask Corey like, what does he say? Like, I don't understand it to the ear. And it'll be someone I knew like my entire life.
Yeah.
But it's like still there's slight language barrier, even just being out there and then coming back home.
Right.
And I guess for me, can you guys remind me where you two are from?
Yeah, so I live out towards like Alamance County, so just like middle smackdown state, like 20 minutes outside of Chapel Hill.
Okay.
Like 45 from Greensboro, really in the middle of all like bigger city areas. But I grew up in Snow Camp, so it's just like rural like county. It's like small neighborhoods, and then you got like huge farms next to it. So yeah, like those like kind of like fake neighborhoods that don't have any cement on the side, no walking paths. So it's like you could try to do stuff down there, but you might get lost, or it's gonna be kind of a crappy sort of situation. Yeah. But
And so I was born in Franklin, Tennessee, which is like 30 minutes away from Nashville. But I grew up in Boone, actually.
Okay.
And, when I was growing up, comparing Boone now compared to like how it was when I was growing up, like there's been a lot more of like communities that have just like kind of like helped Boone in that sense. Because growing up, it was mostly just like a white town. And I was like, and then I remember in my grade, I was like one of two like kids that wasn't white, but coming to App just really kind of changed that whole perspective because it's a big change. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess like to help with that, have you ever been to Boone? You been to App State?
Yeah.
Have you really?
Yeah, I have.
Wow,
Yeah.
that doesn't
It
sound
was
like
one of the colleges I toured up there.
Oh, okay, so you toured it. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you meant for other vendettas. But anyway,
That
so
too, yeah.
They're smiling like
so my first impressions, right? I was coming out of high school, and I guess this will kind of help start the root of the why we're meeting today. But coming out of high school, well, really through the Gadugi program was the first time I went up there, and we'll get more into that as far as what that is exactly. But going up to Boone, in this area, Appalachia, the Appalachian Mountains, however you want to say it, it's just like, damn, it's real hick. And we're way up here in the mountain, like way back up here.
Yeah.
So I didn't expect too much of like anything that we see here on the bottom of the mountain.
What's the logo? The Mountaineers or
something like that. So like going up there, I didn't think too much of it, but I think at one point somebody that when we first got there was suggesting that we be careful, right? Just because we're such a diverse group at the time, right? This is like high school, so 8 years ago, something like that. But when we got there, like, hey, be careful. There's been like instances or situations where they were hitting like biracial couples. They were driving by and threw something at them, and it probably was just something stupid and like totally unrelated to race. But like that was my first impression. Unfortunately, I was like, "What the fuck?" But I like the area though. Yeah. It's pretty. The drive up there is pretty. Yeah. The area itself, like the surrounding towns and stuff, it gets like super hick and then like super like wealthy looking. You know what I'm saying? And then super hick again, and then it's like boom, boom, right? So. But yeah, I thought it was cool. I like the area. It's nice. I never had an issue with anybody going up there myself, but I think the campus is pretty, and all that good stuff. Yeah. But that was my first impression. So I don't know what it was like living there.
I mean, to your point about the accents thing, like just kind of like wrap that up because we always talked about how we went to school and our accent changed because we pick up from other people who are not even just like white, but other people of color, right? Other people from other countries, other parts of like geographically, other parts of the country as well. And we come back here and we kind of like almost code switch a little bit without even realizing it. You get more comfortable and you're allowing yourself to kind of sound what you normally sound, like that first sort of like even language or accent or dialect you pick up on. But to your point about how also you mentioned Asheville, like a certain part is like feels really safe, like a bubble. Boone tends to be like a bubble and it's really just kind of stayed that way for a little bit. You can tell on some of the counties you get further out, it kind of rubs off a little bit on that effect, either through like the food, which I think is a great way to like introduce people to like different cultures as food. But also other point, you leave and it gets kind of hairy, man. Like it is some parts that are very much either stuck in their ways or it's like that like daylight racism. I love that term because it's like it's in your face. They might not call you a slur, but it's like I see that you don't really want to talk to me right now. Right. You might say good morning to someone to the person bring you up and they're just like, okay, great. You don't gotta say me thank you. I don't need a smile
it's
from you.
Insult with a smile.
Insult with a smile. They're just trying to like I'm trying to ring you up. Cool, all good. Yeah. And when you get to these places, and some communities are really accepting. They are just happen to be more isolated. You think because isolation equals like intolerance, and it's not the case. Or prejudice is not the case. But it is in some parts that historically have been that way, and they've stayed that way. And some places who were once known for that, and they grow. But yeah, outside in some counties, for sure we're not like traveling there specifically because some of those stories are based in reality, and some of them are kind of more like lived up a little bit. They're just kind of made out to be just stories, but definitely some experience even within Boone as well. So just and like any place, it happens to be like individuals in the community. You don't want to like take from one bad apple, but also you're like if the tree's rotten. All the apples are bad. So, but just something to think about. But absolutely, I don't know if I directly have not experienced something so specific. However, other peers have, and they might come up in things like our school newspaper, like straight up names, time and place that have happened. And you might hear maybe outside of the school as well. I think that's another topic of discussion. It's like, what constitutes boom? The school or the town that was there before the school, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And I think those are actually very important questions to be asking as far as like.
So for me, I would take a step further of like the town, the student population at the time, and then the administration too.
Yeah.
So like within the school, there's different, obviously, like populations that make up what is App State.
Right. So I guess like to dive into that, have you three at any point experienced something that was like, almost, I guess that drawing the line between the board of, is this a bad apple or is this a bad tree? Any experience at all, whether it be like, you don't have to put names, right? And then if it's necessary, just let us know and we can bleep or whatever, right? But just anything that you can come. If there's nothing, then great. But has there been? What was that situation? Whether it was faculty, just a random dude at the gas station on campus, or was it like on the way home? Whatever. You see what I'm saying? Anything specific that comes to mind?
I can start if something comes to mind. So a little bit more context of like my time in Boone. I was in my first year, freshman year online, so I wasn't even in Boone. But my sophomore, junior, and senior year that I was up in Appalachian State, I was there in person on campus. And during my time, I was part of a student-led organization called the Latin Hispanic Alliance. They've had some other acronym, other names known before, but basically they're a student body led group that tries to represent all the Latina, Latinx, Latina, Hispanic population on campus. And the way they do that is through hosting culturally sensitive events that promote maybe like we're going to try to speak more Spanish or like teach other people Spanish, or bring in food, or we'll do games, things that kind of immerse the community around us that exist there who share that identity or whom are interested in, meeting people from this community on campus and off campus and indulging them in different things. And during my time, I served as just a general body member on the board as the internal community outreach chair, which means I try to hold social relations with other people, other really orgs, other student-led orgs and clubs on campus. And there's a distinction between some student-led organizations that are like almost have like a charter, right? They're like protected by certain policies, which were removed during the DEI policy that got slashed, specifically Appalachian State. And also some clubs that were just kind of chartered and founded by students who were always running a line of like, we have to tiptoe on eggshells and we can't really do certain things as far as like maybe political advocacy and other sort of like speaking up, defending for yourself moments without being like, and now you're gone, right? But I was the president my senior year, and that was a year where I got to really kind of dive in a little bit more into like, you mentioned like the different groups on school, as in like board of governors and like real positions of power who run Appalachian State, as it is in the day almost kind of like a business, but it is, an entity, right? And so the most that I really got to engage with was the Office of Diversity that is, to my knowledge, no longer there in its full capacity. The Office of Diversity was in of itself meant to kind of support students to a higher degree, right? Specifically, the leadership positions of these student organizations, the clubs and student-led orgs. But because of those DI slashes that kind of happened on top of programming and specifically like financial aid stuff, like the Gadugi program, which in its entirety, in my understanding, was a transfer pathway to go to Appalachian State and also receive that sort of aid as well through the school specifically. So you could get on campus and have that sort of like remove some of those barriers that have existed for a long time to go to school. But anyways, I worked with them specifically. They're not there anymore. Some of those people are still at App State in different positions, but their role has changed significantly and their ability to support students has changed a lot. And what's hurt a lot the most has been the financial support. The little financial support that existed is pretty much gone. It's kind of, there's a lot of red tape everywhere for those things in the first place. And they helped us navigate those systems as well. So it definitely hurt a lot of the support, right? Which ended up hurting a lot of the visibility on campus, which is another big thing for a lot of students, and especially for Native Indigenous students on campus. Visibility was a huge thing, and we got very little of that in general with other multicultural groups, and a lot of that's kind of
So I guess we're trying to find out like I was explaining to my brother earlier, so because he never went to App State, But he was over at across the country at a different school where they also had those similar
programs
as well. And I'd never been to college at any point.
Right.
Gadugi was as close as I got as far as going to college campus and doing a college credit. I took plenty of them while I was in high school. However, I guess what I was trying to understand, right, was why there was a lack of transparency across the board. So I don't know if you guys were able to take a moment and listen to the video that I had shared with Derek. Well, I'm not sure if he even went through because it was just while we were at work. But I had recorded the Faculty of the Senate meeting that that I attended.
I think before you go into it, if you would explain for the camera and the viewers what the program is.
Oh, yeah, right.
Before we hop into that.
So there is a program, there was a partnership, right? Would you define it as a partnership?
Partnership, yeah.
There was a partnership between the EBCI community, the education system specifically, so Cherokee Central Schools and Appalachian State University, that initially, like he was saying, it developed this pathway, or this kind of not fast track, but this supported system pathway into Appalachian State. So they would offer a college credit for Cherokee leadership and development, Cherokee history leadership. I earned 2 credits through App State specifically, but it's Cherokee history and leadership essentially. And we go around and pretty much teach others as well Cherokee leadership, Cherokee history, like what it means to be a Cherokee leader by definition, what it means to be, Cherokee history, what we went through educating people, because a lot of people, believe it or not, don't even know we still exist.
Yeah.
So I've gotten that a lot, like, Cherokee, what? I thought y'all were extinct. I remember that being a specific sentence, and I'm like, nah, bro, right here, yeah. And I'm darker than most natives because I'm half black. So it's just a kind of what the fuck? That's why your hair looks like that, and it's not black. And I'm yeah. So that's where that comes from. But would you describe it any other way? It's taught by Robertson and Bryant, Dr. Bryant. They would teach that course collectively, and then that's where the relationship came with the Dr. Bryant, Professor Bryant, who hopefully at some point we'll get into the room as well. But I've worked closely with him, and recently went out to App State maybe about a week ago or 2 weeks ago. And he addressed the Faculty of Senate as far as what was going on.
I'd like to start today by wishing you all a very belated Happy Native American Heritage Month. I'd like you to hear it from me because this university did nothing to recognize it. I'd like you to hear it from me because this university couldn't even acknowledge Native American Heritage Month. Apparently, at Appalachian State University now, to simply acknowledge the existence of Native people is to be a little too DEI adjacent. And so we did. So I'd like to wish you Happy Native American Heritage Month. Wasn't just the lack of attention on the month, however. Back in August, and I'd love to be able to tell you when, and I'd love to be able to tell you why, and I'd love to be able to tell you who, but I can't. But I can tell you that back in August, the land acknowledgement statement that many of us here on campus worked on, including Native students like Anya Walsh, Bailey Chavis, Molly Poole. That land acknowledgement statement vanished from our website. It's gone. If we work at an institution that cannot simply acknowledge that we stand on native ground, then it doesn't deserve to be called a university. If we work at an institution with administrators who cannot or will not acknowledge, just acknowledge. Nobody's asking for apologies. But if we have administrators who right now cannot or will not acknowledge that we stand on indigenous land, They don't belong on a college campus. They belong in the legislature. Enough. Enough. And it's not just the land acknowledgement that went away. With that land acknowledgement, we included a list of commitments, a list of promises that this institution made to Indian country. A list of promises and commitments that this institution made to Indian moms and dads, grandmas and grandpas, to Indian students like Sierra and Connor. Those commitments have disappeared. I guess that those promises we made are now moot. We should have called them treaties. The great irony, they're being told, you're kicked out of your place. I couldn't help but think about this as you were talking. You've been kicked out of your space. We've already packed you up. Get out. And this is being told to them by the director of the Office of Student Success. And then, tribal flags taken off the walls. They weren't folded, folks. They were wadded up and shoved in boxes. Sacred items that are still missing. A smudge pot. We don't know where it is. Sage, sweetgrass, gone. And then Appalachian State joined a long, sorry list of educational institutions that have betrayed and failed the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians. We had an 11-year partnership with the Cherokee called Gadugi. I can't tell you what happened to Gadugi. Excuse me. Sorry. I can't help you what happened to Gadugi because I wasn't included in the discussions. The last I heard was an email from Jamie, April the 30th. There are no discussions regarding Gadugi. If that changes, I'll let you know. I didn't hear a thing. Summer rolls around, summer's ending. I am begging for a meeting. Where's Gadugi moved? The diversity office is closed. Who am I answering to? Where will the budget be housed? Cherokee wants to know these things. We're rolling in the school year. Nothing. And then 1 week after school had already started at Cherokee High School, they ended that program. How did it end? Did Jamie have the integrity or the decency to go up to Cherokee? Did Neva have the integrity or the decency to go to Cherokee, sit down with our partners, respectfully look them in the eye and say, here's what we've done, here's why we've done it? Of course not. How was Cherokee informed? A perfunctory and despicable phone call. Cherokee have been treated so poorly that maybe if there's some transparency, the administration will let you see the letter that the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians principal chief wrote to this university demanding answers. Why have you treated our kids this way? Why have you treated Dr. Bryant this way? Why are you ending this program? And then the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians principal chief has to bust his butt just to try to get a meeting with Neva. He's the principal chief of a nation. It was a long partnership. It was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to build Gadugi. And just so you know, they told the Cherokee after their meeting when they said the classes we've taught here for 11 years will no longer be offered. Dr. Bryant will no longer be allowed to work at Cherokee High School, and your budget is now zero. But we'd still love to work with you in the future.
Like, what happened? Like, what is going on now? So we're trying to figure out what's going on. What we know for a fact is that the Gadugi program in App State has ceased to exist.
Mhm.
Why? We don't know.
Mhm.
How? We don't know.
Mhm.
They called App State specifically. Someone at App State called Cherokee Central Schools via phone and just said, hey, no, they didn't even call. Cherokee Central Schools called App State and was like, hey, we have these students in here and nobody's here to teach it. Like, what's the problem? It's been like 2 weeks. Oh, yeah, we cut that off. Sorry, but we would love to partner with you in the future. Hung up.
Yep.
And that was it. And we had already had a roster for this semester and the next semester, to my understanding. Mind you, I haven't been involved like that, but that's what I've gathered, and that's what I have for fact that what's being said as far as the faculty senate goes. So I'll definitely include that as well, but that's what was happening. Mm-hmm. And then everybody's kind of wondering, like, are you talking about? What are you talking about? Higher education from our department. There's a department here for higher education. Goes through the tribe. They kind of have those pathways and help students go to colleges and stuff like that. They were unaware, and our chief had to get involved as well. He was unaware. He didn't know what was going on. So, and they still haven't given him an ear. I spoke to him a couple of days ago at the coffee shop, but they didn't give him an ear. Dr. Bryant, who is the co-founder, doesn't know what's going on, hasn't received any answers. The two people that were responsible for cutting it off, as far as we know, like the next line of hierarchy, they left the room when we were getting ready to speak at the faculty senate. And when he chased them outside and told them, you need to listen to these kids, they said, we can't be in two places at once. And they laughed at him and then left. So that's where, like, the issue kind of arises for me personally. I've never asked these students, the ones that I spoke to at App State, I never asked them to, or I made it a point to say not to ask for monetary stuff. Like, don't ask for a room, right? They're going to give you one this size to fit 30 people in. Mm-hmm. They'll give you exactly what you're asking for. Don't ask for any funding. Don't ask for just to be recognized. They'll give one post out, and then that's it. That's all you'll see for the entire year. Ask for just a borderline foundation of respect. Because it all kind of follows in between that, right? Just respect us enough to have some sort of transparency to say, hey, we're not going to do this with you anymore. Best of luck. That's all it took.
Yeah.
But we're shooting in the dark. So
yeah. And you know how I mentioned that sort of like DEI policies being like, put in place for a while and then they were gone, because the Gadugi program falls under that sort of like multicultural, like specific, like supporting underserved, historically discriminated against, historically misrepresented groups. I think that partnership falls underneath, because there's classes at App State I'm sure don't even exist anymore. And for like the last, at least my senior year, there's a lot of discourse online about higher ed and within schools policies about as far as the UNC school system as a whole. So not just Appalachian State, all UNC public schools, talking about all the UNCs with like G's, Charlotte, all these, because Charlotte lost a lot of their funding and some of those groups as well. But one of those things that happened to DI, as far as like the whole UNC school, higher ed school system, some of the policy cut like funding, classes, put strict rules on what teachers can talk about as far as DEI, right? Like they don't even want to use the word diversity anymore. And Logan, actually, I don't know, you might want to talk about this a little bit. He was in a class where they went over the certain policies that named out like the new rules of like how teachers can talk about things in class, and the classes that are being available now. And Jaime has been here recently as a student, so he got to kind of experience the wave afterwards. You mentioned a school started, their like partnership got cut off because a lot of this work happened during the end of the spring semester when students are gone. Students can't stay there and advocate and be like, well, what's going on? Why can't we, meet with the board of governors? Why can't we set up a meeting and talk about this, right? And the fact that because bureaucracy moves slow and there is so much red tape, it's happened before in the past with Appalachian State, and I imagine other schools. The fact of the matter is that, they kind of work ways around, disseminating information and talking about things. I can't speak on who to point be like, it's them. Right. Typically, the board of governors has been like the face of discussion of like making decisions for how the school will run and doing things, right? And so I want to say the Gadugi program, the reason it got like it's not happening is because of the new ruling around DEI in schools, and specifically at Appalachian State. In general, Appalachian State tends to be pretty isolated from schools. Yeah. Right. And they tend to kind of run as their own sort of ship. You see them at some like flagship schools like State and Chapel Hill. These things happening a little bit slower or not happening. They're being more pushback against some of these like, well, we shouldn't, fight for these clubs because they've been founded since like 1990s before the DEI policy. So they're like a historical thing. Right. At Appalachian State, I want to say the Black Student Association has been around there for a really long time. And so they had an easier time kind of maybe to fight back and be like, well, no, you're not going to strip away some of these things that we work so hard for to, have. But as specific to the Gadugi program and what, as my understanding, Duck Allen Bryant has been advocating for like the last 10 years or so to have it, be a part of Appalachian State. It's just like it's a big disgrace because of the fact that they're not even showing their face to be like,
right.
Like, this is why. Right. And if you're not in higher ed or like in that environment, you're not going to even hear whispers about it. But again, not to put Logan on a pressure. If you can remember some of those things that we talked about, it'd be great. But I remember a very specific moment now. My vice president at the time was looking at, she was in the same class as well. And she was looking at the packet and she's like, this is looking grim. There was a moment where people from the Office of Diversity, Multicultural Center, and those people, those higher chairs who were supporting us, when to go talk and be like, yeah, our jobs are at risk or whatever, but like this is going to set us back like a lot. This is going to set it back the students a lot, their visibility a lot, all of our students. It ended up not being enough in the end of the day. And then over the summer, these things happen. I mean, they happen like this. When they want something they want to happen, it'll be like that.
Right.
But Logan, do you want to?
And I guess real quick, just to give you guys some more transparency as far as where it started. Gadugi program was started by Dr. Bryant and Dr. Forrest, the principal at Cherokee Central Schools. They co-founded that program to work with App State, and they founded that 13 years ago. And it really took off 11 years ago. So it's been up and running for 11, but 13 they had the ideas and the plans and drawn out. So it took 2 years for its development to get to where it is now, and then 11 obviously progressing further than that. But if you have a moment to speak on that, man.
Oh, sure.
And I apologize for not being in frame. We're working on it, guys. So, but.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, it just kind of seems to me that our board of governors, just kind of as a whole, have been kind of making an effort to kind of wipe their hands clean of pretty much any kind of business involving social justice, especially and according to different cultures and, nationalities and stuff like that. It was a lot of in the laws or in the new bylaws that they've been passing, which all of these are publicly accessible, and I'd encourage you to look them up on the Board of Governors website. There was a lot of, these things aren't necessarily going to be, like, we're not going to fight against, diversity themed policies, but they can't happen on university property. They can't happen with any university faculty or employees. So that means a lot of professors are going to be kind of gagged to speak on these kind of things now. There's a lot of generalities where it was like, as far as like student demonstration and stuff like that, they might say this is allowed, if it meets this, and this, and also like we reserve the right to, if it's being unruly or whatever this, we don't like what's going on, we can also shut it down that way. And a lot of statements where it's like, all right, I don't really know what that means. It seems like it gives them a lot of flexibility to kind of pick and choose what they want to be okay with and what they want to shut down because it's too difficult to deal with. It seems like there's definitely a lot of prioritization of big investors and donators that want to build up these schools to be competitive with the rest of the UNC schools, for them all to be focusing on majors that kind of benefit North Carolina, like economically, or at least in majors that can be accounted for well on a spreadsheet, and everything else is kind of being left in the dust. Just a whole lot of like stepping back, I guess, from anything diversity related. I guess they just don't want to deal with it anymore.
That's actually, you want to say something? That's fucking hella unfortunate. But I mean,
yeah.
What were you saying?
Especially with like App State, which is more of a business like school focus. I kind of see like, because I think a lot of the money has been going back to like the business schools or like to the football stadiums. And like if you compare like some of the buildings, for example, the art building with the business building, like the art building's falling apart.
Yeah. The funds are clearly stated and where they're going to. Yeah, it's pretty.
Well, it's actually in the like before. I don't know if you guys were able to watch the actual meeting if it went through. It is a tedious, long, 45-minute like discussion, but I mean, it is a speech that nonetheless needs to be heard. And if you're really interested, like I would implore you to go watch that entire speech. But that's what I recorded during the faculty of staff address. But at one point, Dr. Bryant, one of the questions that he asked was, where are these extra funds going? Like, just out of curiosity, I mean, we would just like transparency is all we're asking for, really. And one of the other teachers had already looked into the budget and had talked to the budget committee or whoever and went through the numbers. And he's like, well, it's funny you say that because I've already did my research on that and had the diagram drawn out. And we're actually missing a couple $1,000s and we have no idea where it went. It's just unaccounted for. So not saying there's any like shadiness going on, but I mean, what else am I supposed to say with that? And this is from the outside looking in, so that's just my personal, and like that's what was going on. So where did the funds go?
And then I have a question for the group.
Yeah.
Why do you think there's this major pushback across the country for? Well, not pushback. Why do you think there's people pushing for cuts and bans of DEI classes or programs? Why are they cutting these programs across the country?
I mean, it has a lot to do with this affirmative action as a whole. Like, that started off, I think, August of last year?
Yeah.
July or something like that.
Me and him actually saw that like remotely at the same time, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we were sitting there talking because we had these kind of like little conversations at work. And he was like, "Whoa, that is affirmative action." I was like, "What the?"
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Like trying to educate myself on that. So we had a little bit of discussion on that, but you were saying.
I mean, how would you describe it? Like, overall, I feel like.
Yeah. I mean, a lot has to do with affirmative action, but it is one across like the nation as far as like higher ed and like these sort of like school academic settings. It's like another like something that got politicized, as like this would be like the scapegoat that we can use our reasoning for to almost hand wash our problems, or use it as a reason and be like, you know what, we're gonna step back from all this, it's super politicized. Let's go focus on other things, right? Something else. It's just something that just got look at the draw and be like, we're gonna pick on this. Like this is something that we can pick at. It might be a reflection of surrounding sort of like politicians in place, of the interest economically of investors. Because at the end of the day, a lot of these schools are businesses. Not all of them are just like government funded. There might be like some funding from the city, some from the state. A lot of it is private donors and people are putting their money in and their interest in. And so it might also be this
sway of like where the money
for sure
goes.
they have a sway, and a lot of this information is public. I think the best way to start this conversation would be like the affirmative action piece, and then starting from there, like time-wise, chronological order, and then seeing how these things sort of fell into place, because it was the beginning of last year or like our last school year where this sort of rumor started happening, and now we're living in this post sort of like afterwards. Yeah.
Like it had been a long time coming for the past couple of years. Like, so I graduated, May 2023. I feel like I was the last academic year that was like truly like App State was still funding diversity groups, or at least just doing all the things that we've been talking about. Then, the summer after I graduated, I looked at all the articles. I'm like, oh, there's big changes coming. Of course, Hugo, Jaime, Logan, they all were here or at App State the following academic year. Hugo was telling me a lot about how he was having to navigate LHA with funding and things of that sort. I mean, like Hugo said, there's just other factors that come into place. I know there's been a big discussion about critical race theory in public schools for the past couple of years.
Yeah.
Especially down in Florida. I think it's really just an amalgamation of things at this point. And like it's basically because, like Hugo said, politicized, comes down to money. It really is just a lot of things.
Any thoughts on affirmative action?
I mean,
for, against, indifferent opinions, questions?
Like I understand both sides of it, of course. There's always been different types of, viewpoints on it. Like this is a horrible example of it, but like there's an episode of King of the Hill, and if he's another character, the cons, one of the talking points in that is that she can't get, scholarships to a certain school in Texas because of affirmative action. They had to say for other people, because that was kind of the whole point of, what would you even call it? Like certain scholarships revolve around diversity. Yeah. Is like giving people of certain ethnic backgrounds, certain financial backgrounds, these opportunities to go to get higher education.
So I was just reading an article about it, like right before y'all showed up. And from the article, one of the pushbacks we're seeing, because they're including these diversity requirements, it's somewhat creating more of a division amongst the entire population as a whole. And I'm curious to know what your thoughts on that are as it relates to affirmative action.
Yeah, I mean, so again, I'm a social work major, so we talk a lot about equity as far as like different groups. And I mean, you're talking about giving has been historically for some groups thousands of years, for some groups as far as like a couple hundred years. This constant like having to live life with two hands behind your back and maybe a leg chopped off.
Right.
It seems as far as affirmative action seems like a small piece of the pie of what is a very big pie of like, we recognize that you've had a lot of disadvantages. You have been literally like math. I mean, there's statistics out there they show economically disadvantaged, social disadvantage issues in communities with families. We talked about how like if you, I mean, I'm trying to think of the word, but if there's like a family who like experience like hunger, for example, this is like kind of a sort of adjacent conversation. If a family experienced hunger in the 1900s and they don't recover from that hunger, those generations there afterwards will physically be really damaged, and they will feel the effects of it, right? As far as like potential like prone to like diseases and different just health conditions, right? Same with economics. If there's a cycle of poverty in families and for generations, it's kind of hard to break out of that. And so when you have things like affirmative action being like, hey, like, great, you got the grades, like you're doing awesome. And we recognize you might come from a disadvantaged background, not really because of your own, right? Which is another conversation of like, do you go pull it by bootstraps mentality? Or do you say, hey, we all kind of deserve a little bit of that social service and that piece of the pie, right? We talk a little bit, or like, aspects politically, different ideologies. But in this case, academically, it doesn't seem like, to me at least, a whole lot of like, hey, that's not fair, right? Why do this group who has historically been discriminated against and still continues to be for how many years and how much time doesn't deserve to get the little, the equity? It's not like, oh, I'm gonna be above you. It's now we're on the same playing field, right? Now we're here. I think there's like this image of like three different kids peeking over a fence trying to take a ballpark, right? And it just explains equity, and it's just as simple as that. It really comes down to equity. It's like we're on different boxes. We could have been on the same box if we just give a little more here, a little bit more there, right? It's not like we're giving respectfully dudes with 1-point GPAs, be like, you are going to Stanford. That's not, but you got the grades in. We recognize you're coming from a different background. We appreciate who you are, and we think you can add to our community. How can we help you? Oh, it's economic. That's the one barrier in your way. Let's make that not a barrier, right? Let's see you succeed. Because coming out of that, and we're talking about academics, but it can be as far as like technical schools, other jobs, programs, other transfer things. Just even a license or something, give you a leg up. So you're like, you know what? Now you're qualified to do this thing you want to do, right? And get you out of a situation or get you out of what, just change, choose to do something that you want to do. Affirmative action goes a long way. And I think if anything, it was going to cause more damage taking that away because there's nothing in that void, right? It created a vacuum. Now what? Right? There's nothing. There wasn't anything before. There was this now. Was it perfect? No, but it just got, instead of like, let's rework it. Let's maybe find something different.
Right. Yeah. And again, like it goes back to like opposing views too. Like Hugo said, like in one way it helps in some form. Of course, there's backgrounds where, like we said, it's a business. Like if you have students who come in who have great grades, great background, great accolades, and they also have the money or financial background to pay for the tuition fully, it's just a better pick for the school side anyway, right? As compared to someone like Hugo said, who's been through generational poverty, essentially.
So I guess from the outside looking in, right, because on paper, I'm the most uneducated person in this room. But I mean, I'm saying on paper, right? I have a degree in military affairs, if that's what you want to call it. I spent some time in the military. So I was out of Fort Benning in Georgia. I live in Bravo. It's infantry. But I spent some time out there. But from the outside looking in, though, right? And I hear like trying to get everybody on the same box to stand on. But that's just not the case, and I don't think the school system is what's going to fix it. Like, if you were to make that adjustment in the education system, I don't think that's what's going to fix it, though. I mean, because does that fix the home life growing up? Like, right. In theory, right? So, some people are born in the hood, right? And it's just like, it's hard to get out the hood. And there has to be a certain level of degree of you wanting to get out, and then you enabling yourself to stay in that area and try to do better for yourself. But there is also another counterintuitive measure that's just kind of like keeping you there. There's certain things that still keep us in places that we're being held. So as far as I see it, I mean, for example, one of the things that was mentioned at one point that I remember talking about was the healthcare, right, for Native Americans, our tribe specifically, right? So a lot of people know that if you're enrolled within the Eastern Band of Cherokee, right, you have to remain within the surrounding, and this might not be accurate now, but at the time, So at the time, I don't know if it's changed. When's the last time you looked that up?
Like 3 years ago.
So I don't know if it's changed, but that I last remember, I don't know if you remember this or know this, but you know what I'm talking about. You have to remain within the surrounding 5 counties to receive that healthcare, that free healthcare. So there's like 2 ways of I don't even see a second way of looking at it other than it's like designed to keep us in this space. You know,
One of the odd things I find intriguing about that like whole conversation with the healthcare system, and also like the history of Cherokee specifically across the United States with removal, it's like they did everything to push us back. Now they're trying to isolate us on a small reservation that's not surrounded by any major economic like development or opportunities.
right?
So it's kind of like confusing at times for me to understand, just because it's like we spent so long trying to stay here. Now they're forcing us to stay here. Now
Now
we're
we're
like,
trying to-
what are we doing?
Right. And along with that, too, it plays into like, where am I going to get the most exposure within those 5 counties, right? What are those 5 counties? Jackson, Swain,
Jackson,
Haywood.
Swain,
Macon is one?
Macon, Buncombe, and
So Asheville is one, right?
yeah.
Does
and
Haywood
then
count as one?
Haywood, yeah.
Haywood. So
That
like-
might be 8 counties more than what we just listed.
This is- yeah,
Cherokee
so-
County, and then the one in Robbinsville.
Essentially, just Western North Carolina.
Yeah, Western North Carolina.
Yeah, essentially just Western North Carolina. But where in Western North Carolina, right, are you going to get a lot of exposure other than Asheville?
I mean, it's true.
You know what I'm saying? And from experience, like, I feel like I've learned more and been, you know, had this broader, open-minded set of thinking, or way of thinking, when I went to Raven Gap in Georgia, when I went to the military and spent time in the military. Like, now I'm like trying to go out to these different places and experience life. And then I come back home and see people that we know that have never been to Asheville. They've never left Cherokee, like never went further than Silva. You know what I'm saying?
True, yeah.
And you know, like there's certain people that you
Yeah.
probably know that's never left, and they don't think further than that.
No, this is like their whole world. Yeah.
So like this is far, like, to them, once you pass the mountain, it's fucking a dead drop and the world ends. Like, it's a flat fucking piece of earth. So where do we get that exposure and learn things and see, like, there's much more to the planet than this, other than TV and other than Asheville, when you seclude us to this area? And mind you, like I said, it takes that mindset of like, I can do it, I can make this push and live somewhere else and not be restricted just because of healthcare. And that's just an example, but you know what I'm saying?
I feel like this ties into what Hugo said about the mentality of pull yourself up by your bootstraps, or have like just a little bit of inclusion and equity amongst the population, and how do we address that problem within itself?
Right. Yeah.
And to your point, healthcare is very much, I mean, it sounds like here, like the healthcare that we have available in Cherokee is kind of facing the same issues, at least like as far as like individuals who are using the healthcare. Healthcare across the U.S. is broken. Like, you think about like Medicare, Medicaid, right? You have to earn like a certain amount. You earn $1 more, that's gone. You're not weaned off it. You're not given nothing else. I think it's more like than $30,000. You know, you get like $1 more than that, goodbye your dental, goodbye to your things. And like you said, if now you're in this position where like, okay, I have to live in this county, and the surrounding counties around me aren't like metropolitan areas. Like, I can't just be like, well, great, I'll just move 2 hours across this other county, I'm gonna find a job, I mean, great, things are looking good. Now I'm like quite literally tied down because of like laws in place tell me like, you will lose this aid if you leave, right? And that, on one hand, you have a conversation and be like, okay, so do I stay in this community and tough it out with other individuals, and we try to grow this place to, who's going to be the entrepreneur who's going to provide 10,000 jobs in this area, or do I bank on my chance to be like, there's an opportunity out that way, I'm going to go. I feel like I've heard a conversation about like, you're like city natives versus like being like here on the quality boundary. So then it's like, you have that experience where you're like, okay, well, some kids are moved young, some choose to live out there, and that might be a whole cultural thing. But like, as far as like, you're talking about healthcare, Corey, like, okay, like who, like, what do I do there? I mean, I don't know enough about Cherokee like laws and like kind of like voting and how like who makes a decision about like, okay, this is how you will receive healthcare. But yeah.
And before we even dive into it, if we end up going that route, to give you as much as we understand, just so you know, there is this super gray area when it comes to state law, to tribal law, to Fed law. And it's like, it's immensely like so gray, and it's so like just dead space. Like it's literally jumping from a spaceship to spaceship. Like you're just kind of floating like, okay, cool, I'm here. So, and we were talking about that too, as far as like starting businesses on the reservation, right? How do we go about it? I don't know. It just says this in the statute, but, and it's like, well,
just the jurisdictions across the
it's like
state as a whole.
So do we go this route, or who do we talk to? And then it's like, you're kind of lost as far as that space goes, as to go and, God forbid, but that's if you wanted to go about that lawsuit, it's kind of just like, well, how do I figure that out?
I think to tie in both conversations of the Indian Health Services and businesses starting on the reservation, given the jurisdiction differences, to tie those both together, historically, like reservations are in isolated areas of the country, right?
Right.
So it's like on one end, the jurisdiction is a gray area from the state, federal, and the tribal law. On the other end, where these reservations are put in place, I mean, just to clarify, like we're a boundary, not a reservation technically, but in general,
Politically correct. We're
literally
a boundary.
PC about it, but it's like that incentive to work on the reservation isn't there because of the location of these reservations across the states. In addition, to tie it into healthcare, yes, we have the surrounding Western North Carolina counties for healthcare if we live here, but also we could be in a different reservation and use that same Indian Health Services. But given the location and they're in like vast, various like deserts and isolated, the incentive for businesses to start, it's not there.
Right. Like, yeah.
So it's a multifaceted, complex problem.
And not even to take into consideration too, like we drove past Wyoming, and I forget which Wind River. We were in the Wind River reservation, right? There was like, did you see a hospital? I saw maybe a clinic.
Rundown clinic that looks like one of the like Food Line stores.
Yeah,
like a little clinic,
repurposed.
Yeah. So it's like, yeah, so I can use that one, but do I even want to, bro? Like, I will take my chances with the damn, like, bleeding from the neck, driving to the next hospital, you know? So it's just like, are those... Oh, from my perspective, looking from the inside in, it's just like, well, is it even worth it?
It's like a Burger King, man. It's like a Burger King, you know?
It's like being like a second-class citizen, but not a second-class citizen.
Yeah.
Because we're pushed away into like our isolated communities, and it's like, all right, like live or die, do your thing.
Yeah, I mean, the way I learned about his history, like the history of the Cherokee, really EBCI here, at school, and really just talking to Derek, it's like the community was pushed. This group of people was pushed to a place where they were not meant to survive, right? I mean, let's be honest. You were put here to be like, okay, this is a desolate area. You will not succeed here. And you guys are still here. Places are still here. And now this conversation will be like, okay, so do we keep staying here? Obviously, you're creeping out to different surrounding counties. Or, do I feel like I need to be tied down? That's...
I guess, like, to go back to kind of correct that, right? I just kind of disagree in a sense, and that's completely fine. But I just disagree with the fact that we weren't meant to be here, I guess, in a sense.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe in modern day, right? It's hard. That would make sense.
Yeah.
Yes.
But historically, originally, we strive. Like, this was but we don't have that anymore. We don't go and...
It's how do you live a traditional lifestyle with the complexities of contemporary culture?
And I think we've run into this issue quite a bit since we started this, this podcast. Like, how do we... There was a book that he actually had brought up that he had read, and I need to read it as well, but the urban
Indian, what you're talking about? In the book, it was urban Indian versus reservation Indian, and the different cultures and loss or gains of...
And we also watched like a documentary on like urban Indians and how like they literally have 4 or 5 blocks in the city. And it's like a gated community, but it's just like...
With the Relocation Act of natives. So like our great aunt was relocated to Oakland, California. And then she moved back. But it's like, I don't know how to explain it, but I know how to like explain it, if that makes sense. They're pushing you out or they're making you isolated. But at the end of the day, they're trying to strip away the identity.
So same concept with the boarding schools, but a more like... socially, politically safer.
Much more systemic.
We're not going to be like hounded for it or like it doesn't look bad, but we're going to take you from here. We're going to put you in this place, kill the Indian, save that man inside of you, and then boom, hopefully here in about 20, 30 years, 100 years maybe,
Indian problem removed.
And to your point, you mentioned people like that guy that made the comments like, I thought y'all were gone. It's like, what do you mean we're gone? Because systemically, things like that, laws in place, talking about the media available to us, representation, right? And you wouldn't know a group exists if you've been told, oh yeah, no, they were here and now they're not.
Right.
That short paragraph in like 5th grade textbook.
Yeah, exactly. We and the Cherokee Indian was here and then they were not. It's like, what the fuck?
And the Thanksgiving, the little Native Americans, Trail of Tears.
It was cool. Yeah, exactly.
And then like this, I remember seeing the passage itself. It was like this fucking thick, and it was like, Trail of Tears happened when? Oh yeah, boom. Like, well, like,
got a little
what the
annotation
fuck
on that one.
happened?
Be like,
I should start writing under it, but it was like, what next though? And then the next page is
and
like,
the fact that you just mentioned you got a textbook. Why wasn't why was it so saying this? In this space, like you would think maybe there'd be an updated textbook or something new, right?
right.
And
So I guess like just the dress and stuff like that across the board is part of the
it's
bigger
long.
issue.
It's a long conversation. It's
So-
like, where do you start? And then be like,
Yeah.
what do I focus on? And I mean, that could take. Well, you could probably spend 4 years studying that, dude, and you would still be like, I still have answers. I still have these holes. Like, this is not making
Right.
sense. Or being like, how do I take all this knowledge and put it in one, a textbook? Do I do a video format like this? And if I bring in guests and I talk to people,
Right.
or do I, write about it? It's a lot of different ways. I see you moving a lot. You want to?
He's like, I got this.
So like with me, I recently, so one of my last classes that I took at App was a studies of ethnic American literature, where we looked up like the history of like indigenous like cultures, mostly in Canada because the professor was Canadian, and just like seeing the whole history and whatnot, and just like looking into it, when it comes to like groups like this of different cultures than what the U.S. wants, it's like they're always seen as like undesirables. In World War II, we saw it with the Japanese, with like Japanese internment camps. If you look like one, you're in there.
Right.
Or like with the Operation Wetback, also I think around that same time, where it's like, oh, you look Latino, we're sending you back to med school. It doesn't matter where the fuck you came from. It doesn't matter if you're born here. We're all sending you all back. And with the little communities, like in Boone, like Boone's nice. Like if you go around like King Street, overall it looks pretty nice. But take road there, you got to find like some of those like gated communities where a lot of the migrant workers are, and these are like really run down trailer parks. And if you see with like the new how much Boone has expanded over the years, you see a lot more of those workers coming in, but still living in those like really like segregated, like gated away communities, trailer parks, and just seeing how like systemically it's like, yeah.
Even with the redlining and properties
Mm-hmm.
and how that takes a play with like inner city ghettos or even like rural countries, or not countries, but counties.
Yeah. And like, being someone who grew up in Boone, it's like I said, Boone, when I was growing up, was like much smaller than it is right now.
Mm-hmm.
And, I am, when I went to App, I was like surprised to see like so many people of like different cultural backgrounds. But just like actually looking into it, it's like it's the same shit as it always was. Because like App State, does really good advertising of diversity and stuff. And then you pull the bullshit they're pulling in right now. It's like, oh, actually, we're going to anything diverse, cut funding
It's a
to that.
facade.
And I think it's a way to like kind of like trap more and more people to go to the school. It's like, hey, look how diverse we are.
Right.
Because that's one of like their biggest selling points. But like, okay, yeah, there's a lot of people of different, cultural backgrounds. But if they're, how I see it, if they're not represented, or if you don't let them to like represent like those communities, and like, then what's the point? That's not really representation. And being a film major, it's kind of like when, for example, the movie Moana, where it's like, yo, yeah, all the actors are all Polynesian. Everybody who worked in the production are white. And, due to the success, a lot of people are like, oh my God, this is representing. Because of that film, tourism also grew a lot, like in Hawaii, which in turn, you have more resorts and stuff taking away the land of like people living there, like kicking them out of their homes and stuff. And it's just a huge mess where it's like, you see it all around where it's like, yeah, look how diverse and cool we are. Actually, if you could, move away, you know.
Like, get the picture, move out the way.
Yeah.
Like, send up for the picture for the magazine or for the post.
It's commodifying.
All right, step aside.
Yeah.
So I guess the pros and cons of like good representation is kind of what I got of it as well.
Yeah,
Because
there is good. Yeah, absolutely.
over the past couple of years, Native Americans specifically have gotten a lot more media representation, and you know, it's just kind of like just seeing the pros and cons. Like, okay, now we're being represented on the media phenomenally well, and how we agree with, but we also got to like understand that a lot more people are going to come in. We need to make space for these things, and then in some cases, it's a negative entity that's already there. That's like, okay, yeah, we need to make more space for this. There's only a couple islands available. Y'all got to fucking get the fuck out of here so we can make something.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I went out to Hawaii like 2 years ago. Stayed out there for a little bit, and just talking to like Native Hawaiians, talking about the language there, and talking about how like tourism negatively impacts them directly, only because they're removed off their ancestral lands, and even not even considering like the whole history of Hawaii and how it got, what is the word, colonized in a way.
Land rights are also really tricky over there. I watched the whole I think last week's night with John Oliver. And yeah, I mean, it's like the military over there has a whole base where it's basically native land or indigenous land, what they should have.
Yeah.
But they rented it out in like the 1940s for like $12 or something like that. And they're still using that same, I guess, deed to maintain it.
That's insane.
I
Same one? It won't adjust it at all? I mean, as far as you know.
That sounds true.
I don't
I
think so.
mean-
Yeah, I think it's the set price.
It's a
Yeah.
nah, bruh.
I'll just like if anyone's watching, I'd recommend looking up the Hawaii-based episode of Last Week Tonight with John Oliver. He goes into detail about all of that, about how indigenous people are getting treated, how there's the ultra rich coming in, like Jaime said, resorts, Disney, organizations like that.
And we'll have all the links and everything down below as well. But that brings back that one point that we had with the treaty that's still in place, or that law that we can't roam around in more than a group of like 5 of us or some shit.
Wait,
Or we're
what?
considered a war party. It's never
I didn't know about that yet.
You didn't know that?
I
Is
didn't
that a
know
state law?
There was a treaty in place. I'm not sure if it was state or like federal.
Or it
but
wasn't a treaty. It was because we didn't
it was
agree
like a
on.
law put in place about like more than a certain amount of like natives together is considered like dangerous, and like it's a war party. So disperse.
It's illegal, and
And
technically
Is that enforced here, like in on
no,
the boundary? No,
it's not forced, but it's
No,
just
we
one of
call
those
those powwows.
things that are like
Damn.
stupid.
Then wait, what is a power?
That's Armada, yeah.
Holy shit!
But if you look at these historical documents, there's a law that's still technically active that if we travel in more than a group of 5, then we're considered a war party and we're considered dangerous and you can be arrested for it. So it's like a conflict, like on the move, like we're getting ready to attack something. It's still like a legit thing, but obviously nobody's arresting people for it. I mean,
It's like one of those ones that's just stuck in the book still. Yeah. No
Yeah.
one takes notice yet.
and like it doesn't really need a revision because no one acts on it. But I mean, technically,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
but I don't know. And imagine they'd be pulling over school buses all the time.
For
man.
real.
Like, on the way to them Andrews to play basketball. It's like, no, you guys are coming over here
Yeah,
to
like-
start problems.
I had no idea about that though. Yes,
Yeah, it's one of the things that are just still in place. So
Yeah.
it's odd, but I think in its entirety that, and I know it'd take a lot of work, and that's just me saying it because I know that I never have anything to do with it. But there needs to be a revision of all this stuff that's historically been put in place. I
Yeah.
think, you know,
But again, it goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning. It's just overlooked. Like everything in general, just when it comes to diversity, it's just one of those things that's on the outer circles of, I guess, importance.
right?
Yeah, it's not the core.
So that's insane.
But I mean, just going back, like, what were we talking about earlier? I mean, going back to whether or not like these benefits help us or they trap us in a
Yeah.
location. Because I was gonna say, at my time at App, I've told you about this before. Like, it really was like a culture shock. I don't know if you had that, Kaiser, going to out to California, but like,
I had it when I was 14 at boarding school.
Oh,
so
that's
when we
right.
went to
California.
boarding school, because I spent the first 2-3 weeks by myself at boarding school.
Oh, really?
I'm 13,
So-
14 years old, and we were just like,
I spent like 2 months by myself, and like I came from a very like country home.
yeah,
The accent was very prevalent, and then they're telling me like I didn't speak correctly, which is I guess right like on paper. But the whole like culture shock started in high school. California was just reinforced, like kind of expected. And I've been out there before and traveled elsewhere, so
yeah. I mean, for me, it was just more so like I had never went to boarding school, so like for the first 18 years of my life, it was all Cherokee. Like,
Really?
yeah, I grew
All
up
right.
this.
All right, so in high school, right? 14, go to boarding school, and then I think 15 or 16, go out to Bali, Indonesia, with a couple friends. That was a culture shock. A couple years later, went out to the Amazon, did a couple did some work down there with water filters in the jungle. That was another culture shock. So from high school, with those experiences outside the country, traveling to California, which I've already been there before going to school there, it's kind of accustomed to different cultures and adapting and code switching, like you were talking about. So yeah, that's my spill.
Oh no, I mean essentially, yeah. I mean, like if you're going around like that, you're definitely. I feel like that's also more of a positive too, because you're especially getting cultures like where you had no idea like how they functioned or anything like that,
Yeah.
and just getting like a feel for them and hopefully taking something from it. But like,
We had a friend of ours come out here in October, and he had a culture shock of just Cherokee. And he lives out in
Yeah.
California.
Jaime had the same
Really?
thing. Yeah, he grew up, in Watauga, and primarily, it's a white population, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I was like, so growing up, like in my grade, I was like one of three like non-white kids until like 8th grade, where I had 2 black classmates. But no, it was like when it came to Cherokee and like Derek told me about it, I'm like, damn, I never thought I was gonna see like, people like this many like
Brown people.
exactly in North Carolina,
Right.
and I'm like, fuck, where has Cherokee been all my life? I should have like.
He's like, where's the vacancies at?
Yeah, because like I said, growing up in a mostly white like school system, man, the fucking kids were like fucking brutal, especially like when it comes to race and stuff. I mean, like I have like a little bit of an accent when I speak English, which is a little bit noticeable. So just imagine that growing up. I mean, when I first started school, one of the things, so my name is Jaime, right? It's spelled Jaime. In school, when I first started this program called Head Start, which is, I think you skip preschool. It's kind of like preschool in a way. But like one of the things they constantly do is like, okay, you don't spell your name like this, and your name is Jamie. So it's kind of like what they tried to do is try to make me like assimilate to that.
Yeah.
Thankfully, like my parents were like, this is fucked. No, fuck that. And ever since then, my parents, especially my mom's like, nah, fuck that. You could grow up Mexican. And, it was just like a really brutal time for me.
Enforcing your culture, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so that happened to the natives as well on a broad scale. There's a lot of natives that had names like Crow and Wolf, and they'd slap an E at the end of it just to make it more English appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's like that happened across the board, and as well as my last name. So Junaluska, I don't know if you guys drove by the lake or not, but Lake Junaluska, traditionally it's pronounced, culturally it's pronounced Zunelahushki, right? And you don't know that accent historically, and you're like, fuck you say? We're just going to say Junaluska. That's close enough. So Junaluska, but it was actually Junaluski is how they pronounced it. So it's Junalusie or Uské. And then over time, for some reason, the IE turned into an A. So it went from Zunelahushki to Junaluski to Junaluska. So, and I remember the first time I even dove into that and tried to learn more about that, my granddad was talking about acquiring a speeding ticket, right? And he went up to court and was looking at the paperwork and was like, y'all spelled my name wrong. Like, it's A, it's not IE. Or it's I guess they had it down as IE and not A, right? Because they had it like, I don't know what system, but they had IE. And DA's like, so that's not you? And he's like, nope.
If you look
And
across,
just like took off.
if you look across his life when he got like the new cards, the name changes over the decades, the spelling. So I have one of his like older cards, and it spells with IE instead of the A.
So that's where that came from? Okay. Yeah, so I guess like, did they even do that with his consent, or was it just, did he ever specify?
No, I didn't talk to him about it, but I mean, that's just how it is. That's how things change over time. It's just reinforced by, like, I guess, the government side of things.
So we'll start with that.
Before I forget this, I have 2 points, right? So first one is going to be about your thoughts on Spanglish, Spanish versus English in the like a Latin household and how it's spoken, right? And how that's like reinforced or not enforced. And then second is about the American dream, if it's still applicable today. So, however you guys want to talk about it.
So right quick, I also had a culture shock when I came to Cherokee, specifically in the Cherokee Central School. I went with a group at Appalachian State called the Student American Indian Movement. They don't call themselves a group because they want to be more politically active, so they say it's a movement. SAIM, same. Yeah, same.
Yeah,
it's
that's
cool.
what Dr. Brian kept addressing was same in that speech as well. So
used to be known as NASA. So from some people be like, oh, I know NASA and that, But so we went because I think it was the first ever and only to this day female chief of the DBCA came.
Dugan, Joyce.
And
Joyce Dugan is her name.
Joyce Dugan. And she came in and she talked to all the students. And I'm trying to remember exactly what else was going on. It was a blur that day. We came from Boone. We drove over, and we also there was a group of the Maori people that came over as well.
This was last year, wasn't it?
Last year.
Okay, yeah. So you would know Darius Lambert. He was in that group.
Was he really, really tall, or was he
He's kind of tall, real. I don't want to say slinky, but he's thinner.
Was he younger? Was he like kind of like that? Okay, I didn't like meet him like that day, so I don't really remember him.
You know Darius Lambert, right?
Yeah, I think he went out to school with him.
Yeah, I was about to say y'all would have been in the same class or around the same way. So yeah, but anyways, that's our cousin. But he spent a lot of time with the Maori people as well. So he went through the Gadugi program, so he was present during that.
Gotcha.
Did you guys get to catch stickball?
No, we did. I didn't get to catch stickball.
Okay.
That was something I want to ask a lot about.
We'll revisit that one.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
But no, when I went and I saw the hallways, I mean, it was just, we talk a lot, really Jaime said indirectly, pride. It's pride, right? And talking about how like I'm proud of my heritage, my culture, and you grew up in a system that reinforces that. I mean, we grew up in places where that wasn't celebrated. There was no space to be like, you want to know more about that? Let's teach you more about that. That wasn't part of the curriculum. That wasn't part of the plan overall. So you grew up in this place of being like, well, I'm not being celebrated. I'm not being told like this is something I should be proud of, that it can be a source of strength. I might grow to be shameful of it. And we know, as far as I think as our cultures, we experience a lot of shame for, who we are, who we want to be, as within, our culture. But, when I went there, I'm like, I would have never imagined being in a place where like this is the norm. Like we talk about these things. These are things we do. We engage in. And that wasn't my first time in Cherokee either. But inside the school and seeing that, I'm like, you experience this from 5, 6 till you're 18. Yeah, I'm gonna be proud of. So I'm gonna carry it on my chest, heart on my sleeve. I'm gonna go around unapologetically being myself, and that being a sort of strength as like when you get trials, tribulations in places, and for example, in school settings, at work, abroad. I can carry that with me. I can share that with people. Opens my worldview. And that was a little experience for me. But the Spanglish thing, to your point, it's weird because you're born here, you grew up here, and I did speak Spanish because I'm the oldest of 3. I did speak up Spanish, until 4 or 5. I'm in school. I learned English. I'm teaching my brother Javier English. He's teaching my brother David English. So now we're like learning English amongst ourselves. And in school, you're out of English second learning, ESL English second language classes. And maybe as early as 2nd or 1st grade, maybe as late as like 5th grade. Sometimes those systems are kind of like really lazy and they kind of keep you in there because it's just easier than taking you out sometimes. Where they need a reason to keep funding and position and stuff. But I digress. I was on 2nd grade through proficiency or test or whatever, and now I'm home and I'm trying to teach my parents like some words I'm learning because I haven't quite mastered Spanish. They don't have time to teach me all this Spanish, really just fluency as far as reading and writing, because they're working 9 to 5, 9 to 6. There's no time, right? Go home, cook, whatever. So you kind of take among yourself, like in middle school and high school, be like, okay, I'm gonna take Spanish classes, I'm gonna learn. And I go home and I'm like, okay, now I have some Spanglish, English and Spanish, right? There's some words that do not exist in Spanish, or specifically we're from in Mexico. So you go over there and be like, you're from the north. We know where you're from, dog. You're not from around here. That's a word. We're gonna overcharge you for this shit now, bro. Good job, good work. But I think it's fun, and it kind of builds like sense of like uniqueness. Like, okay, this is not a point of shame for me for being Mexican American. It's it's PC. I am Mexican American. The world might only see me as Mexican, or racially ambiguous. I get Indian a lot too. I get a lot of that. But it's a point of pride, it's a point of strength, and I think Spanish can be fun. It makes you feel like more like comfortable. One minute you're speaking Spanish and English. It's my norm. It's my normal. I don't know if for Jaime it was more strict or not, but my parents kind of encouraged like we want to learn some stuff too. So when we're out by ourselves and y'all grow up, you're not with us. We're not left like, well, we don't know. We can't go out anymore, right?
Yeah, I mean, with my experience with Spanglish, it was not necessarily frowned upon in my family, but my parents wanted to focus more on preserving that culture and not forgetting like where we came from in a way. Because my mom has like some friends who are like also of like Mexican descent or whatnot, and a lot of their kids did not know any Spanish, and my mom's like like my son, my kids knowing both languages is going to help them like find careers. It's going to benefit them and whatnot. So like in the house, it was like strictly just Spanish, and like English was like for outside when you're communicating with other people or in school. But in the house, it was strictly Spanish. And, as a kid, you're like, man, this kind of sucks. But now just like realizing and growing up, it's like, damn, like I get it. Because like I said, when I was, growing up, it was like one of 3 Mexicans, in my entire grade. And it's like, that's, my parents want me to preserve that culture. And with Spanglish, especially, you see it, I think, no, I could be wrong, but like, I've seen this more where like, from people that like grew up with like more of like that Chicano or Mexican American community, where it's like, okay, you can be out in the neighborhood and your neighbors would be like, of like either Mexican or like Latin, descent. That way, you could like use like that Spanglish a little bit more. But I didn't have that. And, I think I'm proficient in Spanglish. But like for me, it's usually I speak more like I'll speak in like, for example, in Spanish. Then when I start tripping up in like some words, which doesn't really happen a lot, I immediately like move to like to English. And I don't really consider that Spanglish because Spanglish is like kind of like a mix of both. And the way I speak it, it's like Spanish, English.
For me, it's like seeing 2 different households. One where like English is reinforced and one where Spanish is reinforced. And it's like both at the end of the day, Mexican or Mexican descent. It's like with the language growing up, this kind of ties in with the American dream. Is it still possible for the minorities of the U.S.?
I think the American dream is like kind of usually like a beginner conversation, like pull up the mentality like, okay, I can do it myself. I don't really need any help. I came with one goal in mind. And if it's for specifically migrants and immigrants coming to the country and across the U.S., it's like, all right, I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna get my bread and I'm gonna go back. Right. And usually that doesn't work out because, you meet someone here, you have kids here and you're like, well, now I'm tied down. I'm a part of this community, right? If I don't have family, I have my neighbors, I have my friends, the parents of other students. I think it's definitely gone harder. I think the narrative has changed a lot. You're talking about the American dream, like I'm going to get my money, I might build some wealth here, own some property or something, and then I'm going to retire. That might not be true for just, you're talking about these like white Americans in general. The American dream isn't as feasible as it once was. Houses don't cost, $90,000, $50,000. Cars aren't, things are expensive. It's not, so maybe for some people in a version of the American dream feels, real. I think as far as specific to like, maybe like migrants coming in, if it is really is, I don't really think it's like as attainable as it maybe once used to be. I think it maybe builds over like a bad narrative, but as far as like some people to like not work for what they want to get, no, absolutely. You should work as hard as you wanted to work and do the things you need to do. And I think it depends on who we're talking about, so
that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, this makes me laugh because you're talking about the placement for the Spanish, and I mean, not to do like a side tangent, but it just makes me laugh. We have a friend named James, and it's funny how we go back on like this profile and how you define like who we are as brown people. Like you said, like when you walk up to strangers, like say in Asheville, what's the usual like ethnic background they assume you are?
Oh, I get. So I used to get So I had my hair short like yours, right? And it's curly. And I got like, they thought I was from Bangladesh when I was in fucking high school,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, because I would say, so growing up, what would we always say growing up, right? We're Indian.
Indian, Cherokee.
But like, normally it's just like Indian, right? As a kid, you kind of like, you know,
Yeah.
not really think about something.
Okay, I'm
I'm
from
gonna-
India, but I'm in the, yeah.
Yeah, so I go to the border school and it's like plethora of kids from all over the place, and there actually was a dude from Bangladesh, and I'm like, oh, I'm Indian. And literally for the first 2 fucking years, they thought I was for fucking, but no one said anything to me, right?
That's assumed.
So then, like, we have this conversation. We're learning about Native Americans this course or whatever, and we're going into depth. And then I was like, well, actually, Cherokees, because our grandmother was a political leader at one point, Marie Janalesko, and you know. But I'm like, no, that's wrong, actually. And it was just a small, like, something stupid, like our government system, how it's built. And I'm like, well, actually, we run it like this, and we had a war woman. We didn't have, you know, we didn't let a man decide when we go to war because it's always going to be war. So we had a woman in that place, and we're a matrilineal society, technically. And they're like, the fuck? And I'm like, well,
Going back, like,
yeah, pretty much. Like, everybody's like, what the fuck? And I'm like, well, I'm from Cherokee. It's like down the street. And they're like,
oh.
we thought he was from fucking India this whole time. I swear to God. And so it's like that kind of clicked, and everybody's like coming to me for these questions and stuff. But there was another student that went there, Watson Harlem, and he represented us well out there. He's super intelligent. And then there was another student below me, Miana Feather, who represented us well on the basketball field as well as in the classroom. But like classroom and then like classroom and sports, and then I was kind of just like,
I say with people who move away from like their minority communities, in the most general sense, either anchor down on who they are or assimilate
Yeah.
completely.
Absolutely.
So I'm curious to know what your thoughts are about that, and also like being whitewashed. What do you guys think about it?
You want to go?
I guess while you're thinking about it though, like to continue on, when we go and deal cards, I used to be a dealer as well, especially when I went to the military. One of the first impressions is I get dropped off at my unit, go into barracks, go to sleep, report 4:30 in the morning, right? Really, they wanted me by 5. Wanted me there by 5, but, you know, 15 minutes early is 15 minutes early is 15 minutes early, and it just goes down, right? So I can show up at like 4:30, sitting there. They're like, some dude comes up, and he's built like he's from Big Cove. He's just like fucking. He comes up and he's like, "The fuck are you?" I'm like, "What? What kind of question is that?" Like,
Yeah, good morning to you too. Bro.
yeah, right. And he's a sergeant, so you know, obviously, like I'm already understanding like where this is going. I'm like, "Yep, he's got to be higher ranked than me." Like, you know, it's talking me crazy. He's like, "What the fuck are you?" And I'm like, "I'm Cherokee. I'm Eastern Band Cherokee. From Cherokee. I'm actually from Cherokee. I'm Cherokee from Cherokee." And he's like, "Cherokee? Fuck is that? What is that like?" And I'm like, "Indigenous, bro. I'm American Indian, Native American." By the time I'm saying Native American, he's like, "Oh, all right, bet. What's your war name?" And I'm like, "The fuck?" And I was like, "My given Cherokee name is whatever." I told him, and he's just like, "All right, bet. I'm from Hawaii. I'm Polynesian. You're over there, bro. We're over there." I'm like, "Over what the fuck?" Look, and it's all Samoans. And I'm like, oh, facts. But like, because I'd already spent, I kind of just naturally banned it through basic training with 4 other Polynesian students. They're all Samoan. I mean, I guess the political PC term for it, but they're all Samoan. And I was super close with them. Specifically, Paul. Paul is one of my homies back in the day, and you know, I'm good friends with them now. But they just consider me Samoan a lot of times. And then coming home, working at the casino and stuff, a lot of ignorant, educated people, as far as that goes. Just you know, the ignorance on that, not even being aggressive towards it or being, you know, like trying to be assholes. They're just, you know, just don't know. Oh, you remind me of somebody. And this is one more ignorant terms for it, but you look like Maui from Moana. And I'm like, you fucking bitch. Like,
You're like, yeah, I'm big. I get it. Appreciate it.
I'm just like, they're like, it's the tattoos. It's the tattoos in the hair. And I'm like, but you're on a Native American reservation. Why would you think like...
Why was that your first guess?
Right,
you know?
yeah. So
then
that's
I guess Ron be like, oh,
I'm
so...
but I'm thinking like, if you're in fucking like Hawaii, that makes sense. You're gonna think you look like Moana, or Maui.
Yeah.
But you're on the reservation. You know you're there, so
Yeah.
why would you think like you look Cherokee?
Yeah.
Then they say you look real native one time, or
Yeah, I get that a lot.
and then someone asked me one time where are all the natives at, or where are all the Indians at? And I'm like, you piece of shit, you fucking asking me that? Did I not look native? Like I was like, I don't know why, but it kind of played like I'm offended. You fucking asked me that only because I fucking look native.
I mean, it's also like this disrespectful in general because I mean, what they're basing it on is caricatures, right?
Right.
Like you know, for Kaizek, it's probably just the long hair.
Right.
Yeah, like skin tone. For you, it's the tattoos, it's the hair. Yeah, it's just more so just disrespectful in that way. But going back to that, like how you was talking about the placement tests, we have a friend who's native. He lives with Soko. He went to Tennessee, or he grew up in Tennessee for a little while. They put him in a Spanish placement test based on purely on the fact that he was brown. And he got in there, or they're like, report here tomorrow. They go in there, they're all speaking Spanish. They have no idea what they're talking about because they weren't raised speaking Spanish. They grew up like with, I guess, Latin influences from their mother and, you know.
Right.
But yeah, they're like, what are you talking about? So the next day they got sent back, but that just goes to show like there is a type of generalization about it.
I guess my experiences benefited me in a way because there wasn't a presence in my unit of Native Americans. There's one guy that his last name was Trueblood, and he was like, I'm Native too. And then I kind of assumed that he was one of those like my great great grandma and passed down, and my last name is Trueblood, and he didn't act like he was Native. And then I was like, well, what do you guys do for this? Or like, what language do you speak? And he didn't really have the answers for me. And I was like, are you actually Native, or are you just fucking with me? Because what's the deal? So that's why, too, I also got along with all the Samoans and they never once discriminated against me. Like, you're one of us. Like, you know, right. So that's how that experience.
Well, I mean, not to change the topic, but like, I know me and you had a conversation the other day about like, what exactly makes you Cherokee? You know, we were talking about another person. I guess we can talk about it if we can, but what exactly defines it? Is it just the ethnic like DNA in you, or is it the actual being a part of the community, being a part of the culture?
Oh, so yeah. So I had this argument with not really argument. It was just a really heated discussion about whether or not. I guess, yeah, it kind of goes back to what makes you Cherokee, but that wasn't the discussion itself. It was something pretty irrelevant, but it was just like, he was talking about, I don't even see, it's just so rough around the edges, the conversation itself, but it ends up tying into like, well, what makes you Cherokee? What actually like makes you Cherokee, right? Obviously we need a language, need a culture, right? We need to be like, these things are, you know, prominent as far as like who you are, right? You take that language away, you lose 90% of who you are. So with that, aside from language, Cherokees were traditionally and culturally open to taking anybody in, right? If it came down to it and we had to fight other tribes and we wiped them out, we went and took the kids and raised them as if they were Cherokee. It didn't matter if they were Creek, Choctaw, Seminole. It didn't matter. We raised them as if they were Cherokee, and they learned Cherokee ways. Cherokee's a way of life is how you described it. And I definitely 100% agree with that, right? But people kind of get lost in this understanding that it's a blood quantum, right? And then it's the way you look, and it's the way you act, and it's the way you act to a certain extent, because it's a lifestyle, right? And we get lost in what is Cherokee lifestyle in its entirety, right? The whole like being peaceful with everybody and that sort of things, while also being strong and wanting and demanding the respect, is like what I feel like kind of gets lost in translation. Everybody wants to be like the hippy dippy peace, you know, we love everybody, but at the same time, you're not going to fucking disrespect me, and that's what we stand firm on, and kind of lose the other side, or vice versa. Yeah. So,
I mean, to your point, you mentioned like your earlier question, be like, okay, so the argument of like really grounding yourself in like your culture identity, or maybe like kind of like not focusing so much as like that being who you present yourself to like the world and to other people, and also like kind of being whitewashed. I mean, it comes down a lot to like individual. It's like, okay, you know, you might get to a point where you're like really having questions about like, how do I want to present myself, like carry myself? And it's like, okay, there's these things that like are tangible, like language, culture, food, music, story, these things, right? Like that makes me Cherokee. And then I have other things where like, well, the sort of like predominant culture of the U.S. is like, I need to have like this religion, I need to have this, I need to move this way to be American, but it doesn't really quite fit with my ideals and values as is found here in Cherokee. But then also like being like, well, can that change? Can that evolve? Would that make me any less Cherokee if I just do things a little bit differently? And and I think as far as like culture always changes and it always grows. Same with language. Some things are like, this is the alphabet, and there's other things where like, well, no, this is how the way I communicate change or how I'm going to present myself changes. And I think it really comes to an individual. Be like, do you feel like you're yourself a fluid individual? You're like, I feel like I can really change things up and bring things in and kind of, take things out. Like, or am I really set in this way? And that brings me a lot of strength and that being awesome, that being great, Right. I think it's an awesome sort of like thing to get like a rabbit hole you get stuck in. You're like, am I going in circles or how I found my answer? And, you might find it in a year, you might find it in a few weeks, or you talk with other people, be like, what do you think, bro? Like, are we on the same page? Or you're going to say something different, be like, oh, I didn't think about that perspective. That conversation can go so many ways and brings in so many other topips. But that's the cool part, because you're here like, you were here like taking cash orders, shooting the shit, and be like, what makes you Cherokee, man? You're like, fuck. I don't know. And I don't know.
Bro, at times though, it gets like tiresome. It's like, I gotta explain this again every night. Every night.
Yeah.
And that's, I don't know, it's just all things that encompass the problem.
Mm-hmm. I immediately think about code switching and how, like, when we do want to talk to someone, or when we get into, we call it professionalism, right?
Right.
But was it any less professional to speak to you how any other Cherokee would speak to anybody else? Like, if I invited you, see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Why do I have to be professional when I meet him and be like, hello, how are you doing? It's nice to meet you, sir. If I can have a moment of your time, I would like to, why would I have to turn into that salesperson that mostly kind of relates to what group when we think about that?
Yeah.
Like, if I was to do that and take the voice away and just put it over a fucking, speaker and just listen.
Derek talking to words,
who would you think was speaking?
Tyler and Unex, man. We're talking about Unex, man. That's what we're talking about.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But it's like, and you'll hear it, like, and I was telling Derek, like, when I'm texting you guys, you're not going to think, it's not going to relate to who's actually speaking. Like, you'll see it. Like, I turn it on to professionalism, but it's like, why does that have to be a thing, right? Would it be different had Native Americans dominated the U.S.? Would that professionalism look different?
Well, plus when you think about those traits, you're cleaning yourself up for whoever you're presenting yourself to. And if you're cleaning yourself up as opposed to, that's something you would see as dirty.
We do it a lot too whenever we go out. I showed you that picture of us going out. When me and Kazi and Jamie go out somewhere, like, we don't look like we're from the reservation, like 100%. People have more questions the way we go out and dress and like present ourselves. They have more questions about who we are than if we were just like to go out and they would be like, oh, they're from the reservation. Mm-hmm. Probably just assume all this shit. Everybody else is like, who the fuck are these three suited up dudes? Like, this fucking mafia? Like, who the hell is this? Someone asked me if I dealt in like cartel drugs. And they were like, do you know people that know people? And I'm like, oh, I don't do, no, we're not. Whatever. And they're like, okay. All right.
Peace, man.
Right? And then it's like on the flip side, they're like, do you guys like own the casino or something? Like, what the fuck? Or what do y'all do? And, it's just conversations like that. Like,
that makes sense.
What do you think I do? So, but yeah, man.
Well, I mean, now that brings us to like the car dealing. So how long did you do that for then?
I did it for a year and a half, more or less. I have kids, so it just gets tedious, the nightlife. And he's understanding too that, like, not speaking ill on it, but it requires a lot of time. I mean, especially at night, there's a study on like how fast you age, all that crazy shit. So like, I definitely needed a break. I'm getting ready to go back. But with that though, I did meet a lot of people. And I like having these conversations. I mean, this is why we started the podcast. And I did that for a couple of years, and it takes a lot of time working part-time, but then sometimes you fall on a full-time schedule, and it's like you get paid for it, you get paid very well, but it's just like I need to be home. At times. Yeah, I need to be home. I need to do that. So, but I mean, I like it. I like the structure that the casino offers, but given my background, that's where I would strive and structure.
Right.
Tell me what I need to do to progress.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me, when you want it done, how you need it done by, or what way you want it done, and I'll get it done. Or I'm never going to progress, and if I'm fine and comfortable in this area, then cool. I don't need to go any further than that.
Yeah.
It doesn't require any more of you than
Right.
you need to give, other than the scheduling, which happens with the employment issue. So some people don't want to work, and then they need help, so then they have to call you in, and it's like, so that's how that kind of falls into place there.
Yeah.
But
and I got a question. So like, I work as a server at like my family's restaurant. And I don't know if you have like a similar like experience or not, but like depending on like which kind of customer I have, my voice changes.
Yes.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
A dude actually called me out on it one time. I was at the hotel, and I was a front desk agent first, right? So I was just like bullshitting, kind of like I'm doing now. I don't need to be there. I don't need the money. I'm just trying to stay busy. Idle hands, idle minds. So I just kind of try to keep busy. And I remember the guest came up, and I was like, not good night. It was like afternoon or something. I forget how I greeted them, but I was like, hello, how are you doing? How can I help you? And they were just like, I need a room, smack their card on the desk or whatever. And I'm just like, okay, cool. So the rest of that interaction, though, I was just like stonewall, like 234, whatever. Next guest, greeted the same way, and then we were having this huge conversation going on and on. And he's like, well, let me ask you a question. And it was a black man. And he was like, why did we have this interaction? And you were so willing to have this interaction with me, but the last guest I noticed you were real stonewall with. Like, why did you do that? And I was telling him, well, the initial interaction, like, how would you want me to? I don't know if you saw it or whatever. And he was just suggesting that, like, I guess that I need to brush up on my customer service. But at the end of the day, like, if I'm just coming out of the military and, like, having that mindset, if you don't want to fuck with me, all right, cool, I'm getting your shit done, get the fuck out of my face mentality. That's just how, what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like, I wasn't being rude to him.
No,
but he was wondering why I was so more inclined to have that conversation. And I'm wondering now, because it's the first time I've told this story, I'm wondering now if it had more to do with maybe him thinking that I saw another dark-skinned individual, and that's why the conversation had progressed. Whereas the man before him was like, he was a white dude, and he was just rude as fuck. Yeah. But I get it too. You're at the casino. Maybe he fucking lost money. He don't want to fucking talk to me. Yeah. Why the fuck am I going to chop? Like, bro, I'm not wasting breath. So that interaction in itself, it happens though. Yeah. And I think I feel real confident in reading body languages. He's probably seen it before at the dispensary itself, because we've run into some people, and he saw me get loud with some people sometimes based off of the disrespect aspect. But as they're approaching the window, it's kind of just reading the body language and whether or not I'm going to be able to assert this level of dominance. Not be able to, but how is this going to play out? And I've talked to him about this hella, like, where you just sitting there like, you gotta just be situational aware, right? If this dude's coming up, he already looks fucking pissed. Like, quick, obviously, don't
be like, let me get you out. Yeah,
like, right. And it's not like not poking your chest out, fucking flexing, but it is like standing your ground. Like, you're gonna fucking perceive to be a certain type of way, just so you understand that, like, if you're having a bad day, I don't give a shit, bro. You say something crazy, bro, we're gonna have problems. Yeah, that's what I think. Yeah, but I'm also not going any further than that. I'm not trying to be rude. Right, exactly. But don't say anything rude to me, or issues can arise, and I will address it. So, I treat everybody remotely the fucking same. Like, unless I know you, and he's seen it. I asked the dude the other day, like, hey, can you take your ID out the card or out the wallet? He's like, man, fuck that. Ain't nobody asked me that. And I'm like, well, you can go to other windows. I don't give a fuck. Yeah. I sat back, and he went to the next window, stared at me through the window. And the guy next to me didn't require him to take it out, which is fine. But I came from the casino. You have to at the casino. Yeah. And I keep that same, structure. I've never, ever been like, oh, that's fine. I make everybody do it. Mm-hmm. So, and then he's looking through the window, though. And what made it a problem was he showed the ID and then goes, fuck you, motherfucker. Like, just mouths it. And I was like, well, what's that? Like, not trying to be big dog, but you're not going to disrespect me, bro. So, what was that? I didn't hear you. man, leave me alone. I was just wondering what you said because you're not finna sneak diss me. I don't need to be here. You're not finna sneak diss me on some crazy shit. Yeah. So what's the problem? I let it go. Walks off, but that's just a certain I don't condone disrespect.
Yeah.
So
to your point, there's absolutely a customer service voice. We all have it. So if you've been in customer service, you have one because you're told you got to greet the customer, you got to do these things. And to your point, if there's someone who's clearly visibly upset, my mind's like, let me get you in and out of here because you might want to talk to them. I might do my just say good morning. You might say good morning, but just a little microaggression being like, great. So this is the interaction we're gonna have. I'm not gonna talk to you because you don't want to talk. You don't want to hear. You don't want to hear a joke. Another guy might come up and be like, "Hey man, how are you? Good. I'm doing well. This is a new customer, new opportunity." You talk it up sometime. You're like, "Yeah, man, let me talk to you about." And then it doesn't end up being a race thing. It just happened to be that he was, but it was that action of like he was being a little rude. This guy was willing to engage. I'm gonna engage with you respectfully. I'm gonna be professional. That's professionalism. You're like, I recognize this. I'm so for my feelings, how I feel about this, how you feel right now. Let's get you on your way. And that point, that window, that dude. You're doing your job. He's there coming to buy stuff. Also, I think the worst thing that happens sometimes in a work culture is when other peers don't support you. Because if I'm there in that window and you just send them to mine for not pulling out a stick, I'm asking them, pull your ID for me, please, as well. Right. Oh, he told you to do the same? Yeah, you don't want to do it? Next window. And they're gonna know. So they understand this is it's set. Because when you start having people like, nah, it's okay, I'll do that for you. You build a bad precedent being like, well, yesterday I came and they didn't do it and be like, so they're not doing their job. They need to do that. And it goes a long way because you don't have the awkward conversation and be like, why didn't you do it? I need you to defend me there. And the fact that, this is Jason Carson, Twitter fingers online, people get crazy online. Same way, there's a wall between y'all. He knows he can do that and walk away because he already got his cash order. Right. So he's going to talk crazy. And, you're never going to be in the right there. So now you have this like point of being like, do I engage with someone or am I like, I got to let this one go, man, because there's going to be 20 more like these people here.
And it's just weighing out the risk to reward with that.
Yeah.
So the dude was massive. He's 6'4". You remember that guy? Yeah. He's 6'4", black dude. Like he was fucking like if we got into a fight, like it wasn't gonna be like a landslide, but I was gonna have a problem.
Let's go down, man.
But it was just like still just letting the individual know that when shit hits the fan, that like I'm willing to play the game.
Yeah, you got
bro. And like he's the same way. Win, lose, or draw. He's like, I'm just here for the fucking fight. Like, I don't even care about win, lose, or draw. That's what I'm just waiting on this.
Something else, man.
So, but it's just like, and I tell him all the time. I tell Derek all the time, just like us, like weighing out those options while also maintaining a level of respect for everybody that comes through there. So, and then like. And also being situationally aware, like when shit happens at his window or the guy next to us, like Derek, I feel like Derek can confidently say that like I'm aware of it and I'm kind of over his shoulder. Right. It might be annoying, but like when that guy's when the jar hit the ground.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like I was like, don't worry about it, I'll go get it. Like I already knew what was going on, whereas like our buddy next to us was like,
what's going on?
No, fuck it, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. But it's just the situation, and it's like it's not really his fault. He's an older dude, but at the same time, it's just that being situationally aware. Like that's where I learned from the military, and I teach him that all the time. Or I always try to make sure he understands too. And it's probably just me repeating it over and over and over. Right. But like when we go out, and that's being situational aware. For example, we went to the bar one night, and our friend, our brother, really. Technically he was our cousin, but our brother, he knew a guy, and the guy grabbed him by his wrist, right? And
we had been drinking already, or was like
we had all been drinking, but like out the gate though, I can confidently say like blasted or not, like if shit hits the fan, like even like remotely, like there's something going on, and we didn't see a discussion beforehand. Like we had just walked in and we saw, and then they were just like stalemate, and it was like. He's over here like already got this bottle turned like, yo, what's up? And then like I wasn't even paying attention, but I was just like, yeah, bro, like
you gotta look at me like, how do I de-escalate? How do I, because it doesn't take way too long to explain. Two people who are now fired up explain in 3 seconds what just happened. You just be like, you know what, hey, don't worry about it. My bad. Let's keep it pushing.
So on the back end, the dude was like, all right, chill out. Your boy's about to hit me there, and then he was just like, "Oh shit, yeah." Cause like this is da 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 da. I know him. Cause like, facts. Give me a drink. But like out the gate though, it's like we know what it is. So it's just yo, okay, they fuck with each other. Okay, they know each other.
Yeah,
They know each
yeah.
other. Or on the back end, it's like, fuck, yo, is this a problem that needs to be addressed, or are we good?
Right.
So, but I'm actually very appreciative of that. But it has to do a lot with the situational awareness, you
I
know.
mean, like you said before, it's like matching their energy. It's always
Yeah,
matching
mirroring.
energy. Yeah.
I'm real big on that, and it's probably not the best way to go about life, but I do, you know, and it has to, like, how do you balance respect and just, like, you know,
Boundaries.
yeah, you know, how do you balance that shit? So, sometimes I do match the energy. Sometimes I, like, maybe depending on how they look, because that's all you really have to go off. If they're not going to speak, you have to go off their body language, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they come up and they look like they're getting the fucking ringer, like someone is, like, their life is just shit. I'm not going to match the energy. I'm just gonna be like, yo, damn, I feel for this dude.
Yeah.
But if they come up and they think, like, their shit doesn't stink, but they're having a horrible day, bro, don't come over here and ruin my day. You feel me?
It's like the customer service of you as a professional compared to the respect you have as an individual.
Yeah.
And it's balancing
It's just
that out.
how do you balance that out? Like, what is the proper way to go about that? Do you even consider that? Those are the type of questions that
Yeah.
kind of weigh out what's what when you have that discussion, I feel like. So,
I think now there's been a cultural shift with the younger generations of like that relationship with their company or job. It's like, well, I can get another job. So
can you get another meat?
yeah.
So, I don't know. It's crazy. It's definitely a discussion to be had. I didn't know it was going to go that way. So, I'm glad that was addressed, though, because a lot of people don't think about that shit.
Yeah. I mean, I think everyone in here did customer service at least once. Yeah.
And I've definitely been in a situation where I've had people, probably a long line of people, thought I was a fucking asshole. But at the end of the day, it's like, you know, you come up to me, fucking advertising for McDonald's with your eyebrows, like, yeah, I'm a fucking, like, fuck you. You know what I mean? Like, so, I don't know. But, you know, it's one of those things, too, you just kind of brush off and let go. Is it even worth it to even, like, be thinking about that in the long run?
Yeah.
So, does it deserve my time? Does it deserve my energy? Same thing with dealing. I mean, people don't understand how fucking tedious and mentally destroying that shit is. Like, people tell you you're a piece of shit every fucking day.
Right.
Like, you're actually taking their money, and in theory, all you're doing is just pulling a card. You don't have any clue who the fuck's pulling, like, what's coming next.
Mm-hmm.
But they're like, oh, you fucking piece of shit. And I'm like, fuck you, I'm just pulling cards. Like, you know, but give me that fucking money, bitch. Like, you know what I'm saying? So, it's just like, like, I've had crazy shit men say to me as a dealer, and I'm like, okay. They're like, well, that's not a very good way to get tipped. I'm like, bitch, I get paid regardless.
Yeah.
What is you talking
Win
to?
or lose, Cherokee's getting paid off for like whatever happens at the end of the day,
Yeah.
whether via tips or the pickup
So
distributions.
it's like, I'm never coming back. I will see you next weekend.
It's also just knowing what business you're going into when you're treating a worker that way too. Like you said, the casino it's a casino. Like it's literally the odds are stacked against you, but
Yeah, you're literally gambling.
yeah, you shouldn't take it personal. It's just for fun. It's for,
Bro, I
Yeah.
never understood gambling in the sense of like you lose so much and you continue to go back. Knowing what the casino industry is.
What's that meant? You know that picture of the guy diving for like in the hole. It's like you're one pick away from like hitting a bunch of diamonds.
Yeah.
You know the guy going
And
back
then he
sad.
gives up.
Yeah, that's that gambling mentality because you're like, oh, I'm so close. Okay, we spent. Jaime spent $7 at a claw machine and got the stuffed toy, right? I'm like, okay, so I understand that I'm gonna spend $7 more, give or take more, so to get this one plushie, and I might get them the claw, might get a nice grip, and I might just miss it, and that might make me think, oh, I was there, not knowing that hey, I'm probably really far away from hitting this, in this case, a jackpot. We're trying to get this plushie, man, and now I'm $20 in. I'm like, well, I'm $20 in. I might as well put in 5 more. What's 5 more? I already put in 20. That's that gambling mentality, and that happens. So now here I'm thinking like, I'm literally getting a card and being like, I don't have extra vision. Be like, cool. So you got this one. Oh, shit out of luck. This mine. People get too involved in what they see in media and thinking this dude, the corner was fucking bent. They tapped twice and it's like, bro, I'm dealing this and that. I'm gonna go get my lunch in 30 minutes and eat the guy for your restaurant. See you later. Good luck, bro. Enjoy your visit. It's just not. So and when you're in customer service, you build this not like a resistance, but like a callous, almost
like a thick skin,
thick skin, because you're just another customer who's in the same bullshit. Look at that, you won $25, congrats. But then being like, look, bro, I work here, I am just working. This is what I do. And it's across all customer service, restaurant business. Right. If it is that kind of stuff, I mean, it's It's crazy. We talked about so we had kind of a question for y'all. Maybe y'all can have some insight on this. I feel like I've seen just discourse online about like why isn't there more restaurants, and maybe like in the former like fast food chain restaurants of Native American like food. We see like nice, fancy like Michelin star places, like set places, right, in bigger cities, or maybe even out here in the South, and again in like the bigger capital cities of like restaurants, right? We see maybe some place even here in Cherokee, like food trucks, or like we know like a family who makes something like on the weekend or something, and that's like a thing, right? We talked about how like there's like a lot of food here that can be seen as like side food, and then like something more southern, like a country fried chicken or like something like that, right? Or like a meat that's prepared specifically, but like there being existing food that is very unique to the Cherokee indigenous communities, and then being mixed also with like what is typically seen as like southern home food, like country eating soul food. Have y'all heard like of anything, or like have you thought about this? Like, why is at least maybe here in Cherokee or like surrounding counties, why isn't there more?
So I guess like simplistic to simplify that.
Yeah, like
why isn't there more indigenous induced chain restaurants?
The most recent example I would say would be Tupelo or
Tupelo Honey.
Tupelo Honey in Asheville. It's a restaurant in downtown, and they try to introduce a menu item that was like specifically Cherokee traditional foods, which is like ramps or wadzi. And part of the problem with these traditional foods, you can't mass produce them in such a scale that would be profitable, but also for the indigenous communities.
Right.
So you're taking all that. These are actually like where they're. All right, so let me start over.
Yeah.
You can't mass produce these foods.
Yeah.
Partially, it's because like the impoverished people in Cherokee depend on those traditional foods for sustenance. You can go up to the mountains on your property, go walk and like get like bushels of whatever greens you're like getting to feed your family throughout the year. And I mean, they do have restaurants in Cherokee that sell Cherokee food, or like the small families on the weekends, but that's for like the immediate family to have money. And I mean, you can't. They've tried it, but you can't like farm certain like wild greens.
Right.
It changes the whole thing. I mean, For example,
it doesn't bring the go ahead and finish. You just go ahead.
For example, like let's say the domestication of strawberries. We have wild strawberries here, but the wild you can't. You see the difference in wild strawberries and current strawberries.
Right.
There's that line. That's a gap.
So it really just go down to like the same similarities between like a wild like homegrown cow burger, right?
Yeah.
To like the ones that are in the fucking food industry that are farmed, and they look fucking crazy.
We even see it with the difference in genetics of corn. You know, to mass produce it, you get into the topics of how can we maximize profits and limit like the operation funds. How do we do that? We can't with these food types. I mean, we can do it with like fry bread, but that's a general like native food that's like flour. But anything used for that, typically you can mass produce. But if you're getting into nitty gritty of like Cherokee traditional foods, it's up in the mountains. It's near this branch, this creek. You can't farm it in a sense.
And most families have their specific places where they go and find these things that you don't like. They gatekeep the hell out of them.
We talked about the mushroom wishi. Yeah.
And then also, there's certain ways to harvest certain plants, and a problem we've encountered in the past years, is people harvesting ramps and cutting or digging out the roots compared to just cutting it off and it can regrow the next year.
Yeah.
So with some of these communities that are not on the boundary and they're open to everybody, you can go there and like harvest your food, but these people are digging out the roots. It doesn't replenish the next year. That's where the gatekeeping comes in, with the families owning the property on the boundary, saying it's our food, it's our sustenance to keep us alive if we're not going to go down the route of like fast food.
Yeah. Gotcha. Like a huge logistical thing. It's just like one of those things where like it would, if it might not seem like super feasible, like it's gonna be like the easiest thing in the world, right? Because there are these existing conditions, right? That makes sense. Yeah.
Well, I feel like it's also like culture as a whole too. Like there's only certain things that we're not going to share like that. Like, like when it comes to medicine, right? Like we're not going to share that. I know I have a great grandfather who's a medicine man. I found out recently they have archive footage of him talking about medicine at the University of Chicago, I believe. But when I looked at it to try to access it, it does say like it's blocked off for these cultural reasons of cultural importance, or it's not to be shared. Like
We actually brushed upon this topic in our last podcast with Levi West and Rob Martins. Levi West is a very popular, prominent artist in our community, and then Rob Martins has a lot to do with sobriety and how it affects our communities and things that he did to overcome that, and how he can help the youth and that sort of thing as well. He works up at the hospital, but we talked about individual that I met when I went to DC to do a stickball demonstration with Wolftown. You might have seen things on Facebook with that, but that was before I even started working at dispensary. But I met an individual, Ben Jacobs, who's a chef and the co-founder of, I don't even want to mispronounce that, but they do an American Indian eatery and an indigenous marketplace. So they're trying to send pretty much like these frozen dinners that are like traditional Indian food and are Native American food, and they're trying to like be able to send these dinners out and people can order them.
That's cool.
So I'll definitely put the link for that in the comments. Well, not comments, but in the description below. But yeah, so it's kind of in the works. People are doing it.
Cool.
And this was at the one lacrosse gathering in Washington D.C. So, but that's
I'm opposed to it. I'm opposed to.
You've had more thought on that?
Yeah, I'm opposed to letting restaurants go out and harvest like traditional foods to sell them for profit.
Well, I don't think it's a restaurant exactly. I think it's just the online.
It's like what's that food order and delivery service? Was
it
like
Factor?
Like Factor or something.
Yeah.
Like Factor is like order it and it's like, hey, this is what you order, this is what you're getting.
Yeah.
Why not? Yeah.
Yeah, so I didn't get to really dive into depth with him on that.
Send it to me.
But yeah, so I'll definitely put that in the comment. Probably make a little snippet of that and scroll through that. But we were doing that, and he actually partook in stickball as well and tried it out.
Yeah.
So I wish I had more of a video for that, but they did take a lot of pictures and images of that, and it was a real good success.
Awesome.
We were just teaching them how like the original form of stickball and how lacrosse kind of came from that.
Yeah.
And now that lacrosse is this growing sport and getting more and more popular, the origins of it. So
yeah. There was I think we have the Olympics coming to the US in 2026 or 2028. I don't know.
There was an individual there that went to damn, I should have retained this information. He's an older man though, but he gathered all these Native American groups and they went and they were like, you need to have lacrosse in the fucking Olympics.
Yeah.
And he had a lot to do with that.
Yeah.
He was there and I didn't get the chance to sit down and talk to him.
Yeah.
But I did get a picture of him, I believe. I hope I did. I'll go find it. But he was there and he was overseas and they went and stormed whatever board of individuals was making these decisions for the Olympics. Yeah, so they went and there was like a bunch of natives. They went and fucking stormed it and they're like fucking.
And that's what it takes sometimes, man. You get like you're not gonna ignore us. We're not gonna send a fax over, bro. We're gonna pull it.
Right. Yeah. So. But yeah, hopefully next year you guys can come out and be incorporated.
Derek says he says the summer is the time to be here. Like, that's when things are happening. Yeah,
it's kind of dead season right now. But like during the summer, everything's pretty. Even the springtime. We do have some stickball events going on there in the spring as well. But summertime is spring, summer, fall is that open season.
Especially festival week. I feel that's the perfect time to come here. Yeah,
and that's like the start of fall or a little bit later. The start of fall.
And like the only reason we never went or I never took them here was because our fall break was always the like following week after festival week.
Yeah, I remember you mentioning that. But yeah, so if you guys ever get the chance, I have a little video that I was incorporated in. I went out to Oklahoma to help, or there was a couple of people that actually went out to Oklahoma. I was the only one from Wolftown. Unfortunately, we got the invitation a little bit late. There was some miscommunication there between the invitees and the individuals receiving it. But I went out to represent Wolftown. I've worked with this group a lot. Cherokee Nation's stickball team. Right now, it's just one team with Cherokee Nation.
Yeah.
But hopefully over time, they'll split up into kind of smaller communities and have a couple of teams.
Right.
Choctaw does really well with it, and they have a World Series of Choctaw stickball.
That's cool.
And they call it a World Series, but it's like these huge, vast teams. They have like fucking 150 people on a team or something like that. And not everybody gets to play. Like, it's an honor. If you get picked, like, you're Like, you know.
Right, you're representing a group, a community,
Right,
and yourself.
And likewise for us, like if you get picked, like you better fucking do something because next time you probably won't. If you make a mistake, if you suck, you're not gonna get picked.
Yeah.
So it's very raw and straight to the point in that sense. But you can also check out the full length videos on Raven's Eye Media, just so you guys know. We'll put those links down below. But hopefully you guys can make it out next year for that. We play it yearly. I'll let Derek know too if there's an event going on, and he'll probably hear about it at the same time. You guys are welcome to come back out to that and just hit us up on the back end if you guys want to hang out, whatever. Definitely we'll do something. Just let us know ahead of time. We'll definitely plan for it. So you guys are welcome for that.
Yeah, dude.
Any other thoughts, comments, concerns?
Nah, man.
Issues you want to bring up?
This is great, man. Hopefully it was like equal education. You mentioned just like, I'm an educator, but like this is how you learn, it's like school is one very direct, clear path, but education comes in all forms and manners with the people you meet, the things you look into, interest, hobbies, etc. You name it. You learn all the time. You'll keep learning. Definitely not having an ego is, like I said, big ego and be like, I know enough, or like I know everything, or like, you always will learn. You will always learn something, bro.
Right.
Yeah.
For sure, man. Derek, anything at all?
I just appreciate you letting us come on this platform, talk. I know the Gadugi program was the touchstone for us today, and of course, the closing words on that is, I hope they are able to do something with it eventually, whether it's through just the EBCI or another institution.
Right.
But just, giving Kids in Cherokee a platform to like improve, represent us as leaders, get an education, things of that sort. But I mean, overall, we just appreciate it.
I guess like to come down to summarize it all, like I feel like there's not too much we can do about it, which I get that. But what I want to keep telling people is just earning that base level of respect. Have enough respect to tell us, hey, we don't want to partner with you anymore. We're going to go ahead and cut this out, because it's not just a group of people or a group of students that came together and then had a club. There's a whole sovereign nation behind it. We have lawyers, political leaders, we have a government, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's 16,000 of us that are enrolled, probably more now, but that's just, you know what I'm saying? You can't just nip it in the butt and then don't say anything.
It's not partnership.
And we find out on the back end.
Yep.
Like that's weird, and you know what I'm saying? But like it should happen across the board for all groups. But the only reason we have that stance on that is because we have that political backing, and we could. So that's where, that's the point I want to make.
And not even to like make it seem defeatist or anything, but it's also like you don't need an institution to create community either. Like if anyone's watching, like things like that, you can still make a community at an institution you're at, whether it's at a school, whether it's at a workplace, anything like that.
And that's what I told the two students there too, was that we don't, like I said earlier, you don't ask for monetary value stuff. If you ask for a broom closet at the meeting, they're going to give you just the broom closet. If you ask for, can we get recognition from you guys, they're going to recognize you once every year, if that, until you leave, and then they're just
a little newsletter.
And now they're gone. Hey, don't do that. Ask for respect. That baseline level of respect is what you need to ask for, because it covers all things wide, right? Gadugi, like within that description, how you describe it, we'll meet wherever. Gadugi is not the room, a piece of paper that says this, this, and this. It's literally the group of people that meet, right? So and I told him, like, you'll meet out on the lawn if you have to. Meet in the garage under the concrete. Like, who gives a shit where y'all meet up at and have these discussions?
Right.
Ask for respect and then just be there for each other on the back end. Just have the transparency and respect thereof for this group of people that come from a society. We're a sovereign nation, and people need to understand we're individuals to a certain extent, that we govern ourselves. We're not just free roaming and then decided we should start a group, and we're a massive club. We're literally a sovereign nation. It's on paper. Like, we make laws of our own and whatnot. We abide and govern our own people. So that's my little rant spiel on that. But
thank you all for coming out. Really appreciate y'all making the travels.
And buddy behind the camera too, man. We're gonna have it fixed in the back, and we'll have a couple of different angles. So, but yeah, cool. Appreciate you guys all being here, driving out here to meet us and everything. Hope you guys have a safe journey back home.
Thank you.
Here in a minute, I'll have some gifts for you guys, but that's it, right? Any words, thoughts, anything like that? Good to go.
All right, now we're good to go, man. Appreciate
cool.
You, man.
Y'all know what it is, man. Uktenaunderground Underground. We're gonna put all the links down below, so make sure to go check those out. Y'all know what it is, man. Fuck with us.